Chapter 1246, Endless Hatred. Chapter 1246, Endless Hatred. The saber collided against the swastika symbol. Although there was no earth-shaking sound when the two essence spirit's secret skills collided, the space where they met distorted. Yan Beichen and Qin Pianran felt their hearts skip a beat. Back when Yan Beichen's essence spirit suffered an irrecoverable injury, it was because it fought against the essence spirits of a few Dao lords. Now that the two essence spirits' secret skills collided, the energy fluctuation that spread out was even more terrifying than Yan Beichen's battle. Not good. Qin Pianran frowned and whispered, that golden word of the Buddhist monasteries is clearly being suppressed by hatred's fiend Saber. When the two essence spirits' secret skills clashed, Su Zimo's Rulai Dharmic seal was the one disadvantaged. Zimo has just entered the Dharma characteristic realm. Although his essence spirit is comparable to a conjoint body mighty figure, hatred has already cultivated to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm and his essence spirit is superior to Zimo's. Although Yan Beichen's essence spirit was injured, his eyesight was still present and he could see things even more clearly. It was definitely not a fluke that Dao Lord Hatred was able to suppress all the paragons of the fiend's sex and be invincible among his peers upon his return. Yan Beichen continued, but don't worry, Zimo has many trump cards as well. He won't be defeated so easily. The moment he said that, there was an outcome to the essence spirit fight. The fiend's chi on the fiend's saber intensified and a powerful sharpness burst forth once more with a torrential hatred. Crack. 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 Cracks appeared on the Rulai Dharmic seal. It was clear that it could not hold out any longer. Ever since Su Zimo started cultivating that essence spirit's secret skill, it had always been successful and he could even kill his opponents across major cultivation realms. But now, it was destroyed by a cultivator of the same cultivation realm. To be fair, the reputation and terror of the Hatred Sutra was above the Great Day Rulai Sutra to begin with. Coupled with the fact that Dao Lord Hatred's essence spirit was even stronger, it was only logical that this would happen. Desolate Marshal, you must have a death wish for choosing to fight against my essence spirit. Dao Lord Hatred roared in laughter. Although the power of his essence spirit fiend Saber had decreased significantly, it was still flying towards Su Zimo. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged. Suddenly, his left wrist lit up with a golden glow and a barrier of light that was filled with golden symbols appeared beside him. Mingwang prayer beads. Boom. When the fiend's saber collided against the barrier, it could hold on no longer and dissipated gradually. Essence spirit Dharmic weapon? Although the Mingwang prayer beads were hidden beneath Su Zimo's robes, Dao Lord Hatred guessed it instantly. You sure have a lot of treasures on you. Dao Lord Hatred sneered, unfortunately, those treasures are about to change owners. Su Zimo's gaze shimmered and he hesitated for a moment. He had another essence spirit's secret skill, the spirit vanquishing whip. However, he could not ascertain whether Dao Lord Hatred would be able to release a third essence spirit's secret skill to fight against his spirit vanquishing whip. If he took another blow head-on, his essence spirit would be severely injured. On the other side, Dao Lord Hatred was wary as well and did not dare to release his essence spirit's secret skill casually. Vast Sea of Hatred. Dao Lord Hatred conjured hand seals and released a top-tier Dharmic art of the Hatred Sutra. The fiend chi around him rumbled and gathered endlessly, forming an endless black ocean in midair that surged towards Su Zimo. Although Su Zimo's Dao heart was indestructible, it would be difficult for him to break free if he was engulfed by this sea of hatred. Rise! Su Zimo conjured hand seals and hollered softly. Suddenly, two massive divine beings appeared beneath him. One of them had 4 legs and carried a heavy shell on its back, moving slowly. The other had a slender figure that was scarlet red and burned with flames as it reared its head and howled. The primordial divine turtle. The primordial soaring serpent. The two divine behemoths fused together rapidly and the turtle and snake intertwined, forming an even more terrifying existence. With 2 heads, it surpassed history and was unstoppable. Stepping on the turtle and snake, Su Zimo's body floated indeterminately in the sea of hatred. However, he did not sink no matter what. No matter how Tao Lord Hatred channeled it, no matter how much of a stir the sea of hatred created, it would be suppressed rapidly by the turtle and snake. Carrying Su Zimo, the turtle and snake swam against the current and charged towards Tao Lord Hatred. Suddenly, Su Zimo closed two fingers and conjured a sword art. Instantly, stars filled the skies above the firmaments and their trajectories turned chaotic, as though they were agitated. When the heaven's killing intent is released, the stars are shifted out of alignment. Chi. Su Zimo extended his sword finger and slashed forward. A white sword chi surged out from his fingertip with an endless sharpness and a shuddering killing intent, slashing towards Tao Lord Hatred. The entire void seemed to have been sliced into two by that strike. It was not over yet. Chi. 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 After slashing out once again, Su Zimo released another burst and waved his sword fingers continuously, releasing 10 heaven-slaying sword chi in one go. Back in Dragon Tiger Sect, Su Zimo killed a mighty figure of Dragon Tiger Sect with 3 consecutive slashes. Right now, the burst of the 10 heaven-slaying sword chi was enough to destroy gods and fiends. Tao Lord Hatred's heart skipped a beat. Although he could not recognize the origin of the heaven-slaying sword chi, he could sense how terrifying those 10 sword chi were. With no time to think, he gripped his saber with both hands and released an endless hatred as though he was one with the fiend's saber. He hated the heavens, the earth, all living beings and everything in the world. Endless hatred. Tao Lord Hatred released the most terrifying saber technique of the Hatred Sutra and endless hatred descended. That was the saber intent of hatred. The power of intent was comparable to top-grade Dharmic arts. The saber danced and endless hatred turned into streams of fiend chi that charged towards the 10 incoming sword chi. Clang. 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 The sound of metal clashing echoed in an ear-piercing manner. In the blink of an eye, the 10 heaven-slaying sword chi were blocked by Tao Lord Hatred's saber technique. This was the first time that Su Zimo had seen a cultivator of the same cultivation realm defend against 10 heaven-slaying sword chi unscathed. It was only at that moment that Tao Lord Hatred displayed his skills as the #1 saber of the fiend sects. What was even more terrifying was that Tao Lord Hatred's saber techniques were completely unleashed. They shrouded towards Su Zimo endlessly, intensifying with increasing horror. The hatred was endless. The dominance of the saber technique absorbed all the spirit chi and Dharmic powers in the void, turning them into the hateful fiend chi in his body and fusing them into the saber technique. One would never be able to break free eternally if they were drawn in by that saber technique. Beneath that boundless hatred was a bottomless abyss. Su Zimo soared into the air and took a deep breath, chanting Sanskrit. Om. Ma. Ni. Pa. At the same time, Su Zimo conjured Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries and all 4 of them descended without holding back. He did not stop there. Endless hatred was so terrifying that it could not be stopped with the 4 Dharmic seals of the Buddhist monasteries alone. Su Zimo required an even stronger burst power. Sea Burial Secret Skill. Apocalyptic Fiend Fist. Mighty Heavenly Dragon Transcendence. Sandstorm. Great Sanskrit Light Fist. Avicii. More than 30 terrifying Dharmic arts and secret skills were released by Su Zimo in the blink of an eye. All Dharmic arts were combined and heaven and earth shook. Chapter 1247, 90 feet, Supreme. Chapter 1247, 90 feet, Supreme. More than 30 Dharmic arts descended and the entire bamboo forest was destroyed instantly. All the bamboo turned into dust and dissipated under the terrifying Dharmic arts. How scary! Qin Pianran, who was watching at the side, could not help but exclaim. She was from a super sect like Sword Sect and had seen all sorts of paragons and monster incarnates. The previous Dharma characteristic rankings #1 Tao Lord Immortal Sword was her senior brother. However, even Tao Lord Immortal Sword would not be able to produce such a ferocious and terrifying attack. Those were more than 30 top-grade Dharmic arts. Humans were not limitless, and it was rare for most cultivators to be able to comprehend one or two top-tier cultivation techniques. They would already be at their limits if they could comprehend 3 or 4. A scene like Su Zimo, where he released more than 30 Dharmic arts instantly, was absolutely unprecedented and shocking. Yen Beichen could not help but nod as well. To think that Zimo would be able to transform to such a realm in more than 10 years. More than 10 years ago in 100 Refinement Sect, Su Zimo was only at the Void Reversion realm. Ah! Tao Lord Hatred felt the pressure as well and suddenly howled into the skies. His howl was sorrowful and tragic, causing one's heart to flutter uncontrollably. A sound domain attack. Given Su Zimo's Green Lotus true body, there were few sound domain attacks that could stir his mind. However, he frowned the moment the roar was released. This sound domain attack was not only affecting his eardrums, but also his mind and even his essence spirit. The Hatred Sutra was truly terrifying. Kill. Not daring to be careless, Su Zimo released Thunderclap Kill to defend as well. Bang! Boom! Boom! His voice was like rumbling thunder, filled with a vast and righteous power that suppressed evil and descended. Even so, he could not suppress Tao Lord Hatred. After that sorrowful howl, an endless hatred surged into Tao Lord Hatred's body and it was instantly pushed to its limits. The entire process resembled a person who encountered great changes, going from pain, despair and hatred. Endless hatred burst forth and swirled around the fiend's saber, forming a gigantic pitch-black saber beam that slashed down at the 30-odd Dharmic arts. Boom! More than 30 top-grade Dharmic arts collided with the pitch-black saber beam and let out a deafening bang, causing the entire world to tremble. A blinding light burst forth from the point of collision. A massive energy fluctuation formed a semicircular barrier that extended in all directions, severing countless towering ancient trees in the forest instantly. Mud surged and dust billowed, as though the apocalypse had arrived. Countless fiend demons in the forest fled in fright from this place. Tao Lord Hatred did not retreat at all. He managed to defend against more than 30 Dharmic arts released by Su Zimo. The Hatred Sutra was way too strong. The 30-odd inheritances he received were left behind by ancient mighty figures or even half-martial ancestors. However, they were still far inferior compared to the Hatred Sutra. After all, these ancient mighty figures and half-martial ancestors did not even manage to advance to the Mahayana realm. However, Fiend Emperor Hatred was an emperor of the ancient era. The gap between them was obvious. Of course, Tao Lord Hatred was not the true Fiend Emperor Hatred. Although more than 30 Dharmic arts were released at the same time and Tao Lord Hatred was not suppressed, it was impossible for him to gain the upper hand. The two of them were in a stalemate and channeled their Dharmic powers continuously without relenting. The aura between them was rising rapidly. Finally, the Dharmic powers within their bodies reached a critical point. Neither of them could withstand the pressure. Boom! Boom! Almost at the same time, a gigantic phantom burst forth from their bodies and rose rapidly, towering and emitting a terrifying aura. Both of them used their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics at the same time. 10 feet. 30 feet. 80 feet. 85 feet. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo's Rulai Dharmic body had already reached a height of 85 feet. As for Tao Lord Hatred's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, it did not stop at 85 feet and rose to 90 feet before long. A 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristic. Yen Beichen and Qin Pian Ran were shocked. Nobody had seen Tao Lord Hatred's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic before and nobody knew how high it was. But now, that heaven and earth Dharma characteristic had finally descended. Throughout history, time had passed and there were many paragons and monster incarnates who could condense 88 or 89 feet heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. However, there were few who could condense supreme Dharma characteristics. For the past 10,000 years, extreme fire was the only one. But now, there was another person, Tao Lord Hatred. Even among 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristics, their combat strengths were different. At the very least, Yen Beichen could sense that the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic conjured by Tao Lord Hatred was slightly stronger than Extreme Fire's scarlet flame Dharmic body. Tao Lord Hatred's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was extremely strange. He wore a black robe but his hair was white. Furthermore, his back was facing Su Zimo and he wielded a pitch-black saber. The back of the Dharma characteristic looked lonely and exuded a tragic aura. However, that single back view caused the Rolide Dharmic body to tremble. A 85 feet heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was already strong enough to sweep through anyone of the same cultivation realm. However, the difference was way too great against a 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristic. In the Battle of 100 Refinement Sect, Tao Lord Immortal Sword's 89 feet heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was defeated by Extreme Fire's scarlet flame Dharmic body. As for Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, it was only 85 feet tall. Qin Pianran looked worried. She could clearly feel Yen Beichen's grip on her palm tighten as cold sweat poured down. Pianran, the situation isn't too good. Suddenly, Yen Beichen said, "Leave first. I've got to assist Zimo later." "Beichen, your essence spirit is injured and you can't attack." Qin Pianran said hurriedly, "Furthermore, I heard that fellow Daoist Su cultivated 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. There might be a chance for things to change. 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics won't do either. The difference between a 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic and a supreme Dharma characteristic is too great." Yen Beichen shook his head with a grim expression. Boom! Another loud bang sounded from Su Zimo's body. Another phantom soared into the skies. The second heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the 85 feet heavenly fiend Dharma body. There was no way the Rolide Dharmic body could defend against the pressure of a supreme Dharma characteristic. It had already lost before it even attacked. The Rolide Dharmic body and heavenly fiend Dharma body stood side by side behind Su Zimo, emitting powerful auras that clashed against Tao Lord Hatred's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. "Fufu, you finally released your second Dharma characteristic." Tao Lord Hatred laughed. "I've long heard that after Desolate Marshal entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he conjured 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that are unprecedented. The entire cultivation world has praised you to the skies. Today, I'll let you know something. In front of a supreme Dharma characteristic, your 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics are nothing." Tao Lord Hatred's heart stirred. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was initially standing behind him suddenly turned around. Su Zimo exchanged glances with the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic and could not help but shudder as his Tao heart nearly collapsed. Chapter 1248, 3 Dharma Characteristics. Chapter 1248, 3 Dharma Characteristics. Those bloodshot eyes were filled with sadness, pain, despair, hatred and devastation, as well as various negative emotions. It was as though the bloodshot eyes were bottomless abysses. Su Zimo merely exchanged a single glance and was nearly devoured by the abyss. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was the union of all Dharmic arts and was the epitome of Dharmic arts. It was lifeless and could not contain any emotions. However, Tao Lord Hatred's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was different. Just by standing there, the Dharma characteristic was like an abyss with endless hatred that could devour and destroy everything. Meeting those eyes, Su Zimo suddenly recalled the legend of the Fiend Emperor Hatred. Legend has it that Fiend Emperor Hatred hated himself to the core and committed suicide. Su Zimo could not imagine what sort of hatred would push someone to kill themselves. However, when he saw those eyes, Su Zimo suddenly understood. There was no hope in those eyes. Surviving was a form of torture for Fiend Emperor Hatred. Boom! As Su Zimo pondered, Tao Lord Hatred willed the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic behind him to head over. With a single step, it crossed endless space and arrived before Su Zimo instantly. The massive body that was 90 feet tall emitted a torrential hatred. It was much taller than the Rolide Dharmic body and heavenly fiend Dharma body, suppressing the auras of Su Zimo's 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics completely. Swoosh! Raising the saber in its hands, the hatred Dharmic body slashed down viciously at Su Zimo's head. The heavenly fiend Dharma body swung its scythe and defended against the fiend's saber as well. Clang! Sparks flew as the two sabers collided. The hatred Dharmic body did not move at all, and there was no fluctuation in its eyes. As for the heavenly fiend Dharma body, its body shuddered and Dharmic powers surged. The Dharma characteristic was nearly cleaved into two by a single slash from the hatred Dharmic body. A 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could even fight against conjoint body mighty figures. With that heavenly fiend Dharma body, Su Zimo was invincible in Dragon Tiger sect, and nobody could defend against his attacks. Even mighty figures had to bow down to him. However, in the face of the hatred Dharmic body, the difference between them was too great. The difference between 85 and 90 feet was merely 5 feet. However, that difference was like heaven and earth. If it was any other cultivator's 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, they would not even be able to withstand a single slash from the hatred Dharmic body. The reason why the heavenly fiend Dharma body could defend against it was because the foundation of the Dharmic body originated from the Tao Heart Fiend Seed Sutra. It was infused with many cultivation techniques of the fiend Tao and was extremely mysterious. This heavenly fiend Dharma body was a product of the greater mastery of the fiend Tao. Boom! The Rulai Dharmic body moved as well and extended a golden shimmering palm that blanketed the skies, crushing down on the hatred Dharmic body. Without even looking, the hatred Dharmic body punched in reverse into the Rulai Dharmic body's palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided. The Rulai Dharmic body shuddered and took half a step back as well. Ha 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 ha. Tao Lord Hatred laughed with a smug expression. Desolate Marshal, if you continue cultivating and cultivate those two heaven and earth Dharma characteristics to a height of 89 feet or 90 feet, you might be able to fight me. Unfortunately, you no longer have a chance. I'll take your life today. As Tao Lord Hatred hollered, the hatred on the hatred Dharmic body intensified and it let out a tragic roar, sinking into endless despair. The fiend's saber in his hands rose and descended once more. Ooh! Ooh! The saber tore through the air and let out a series of shuddering wails. That slash enveloped the Rulai Dharmic body and heavenly fiend Dharma body. Su Zimo's expression turned grim. One could only truly sense the terror of a supreme Dharma characteristic after clashing with a 90 feet Dharma characteristic. 9 was an extreme number. 90 feet was the mark of a supreme. Those were not empty words. Boom! Under that immense pressure, Su Zimo no longer had any reservations and another phantom burst forth from his body with a loud bang. A third heaven and earth Dharma characteristic descended. The heaven and earth Dharma characteristic stood on dark clouds and shone with endless lightning. It was domineering and looked down on the world, wielding a whip made from millions of lightning with a torrential aura. It resembled an ancient thunder god that controlled the world. The thunder Dharmic body had descended. The thunder Dharmic body was formed with the Great Void Spirit Refinement section as the foundation and many secret skills of the immortal Tao. It rose rapidly to a height of 85 feet. There were now 3 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. A deep hint of fear flashed through Tao Lord Hatred's eyes. It was thankful that Tao Lord Desolate Marshal was only at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. If the latter were to cultivate to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm, even his supreme Dharma characteristic would not be able to deal with the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. But now, 3 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were still not enough to threaten his hatred Dharmic body. Crackle! Thunderbolt danced in the whip that tore through the air and wrapped around the wrist of the hatred Dharmic body right away. Massive power of thunder surged into the hatred Dharmic body through the whip. The power of thunder was the most effective against evil. In the blink of an eye, even the fiend chi of the hatred Dharmic body was suppressed. However, right after, the blood color in the eyes of the hatred Dharmic body intensified and its heart surged with rage. Rumbling hatred and fiend chi gushed out and it broke free of the shackles of the thunder whip. Bang! 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 The hatred Dharmic body slashed thrice in succession. The thunder Dharmic body, Rulai Dharmic body and heavenly fiend Dharma body defended against it head-on. However, their bodies shuddered and they retreated a few steps. They could not defend against it. Su Zimo's expression finally changed. Even the 385 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics could not defend against the power of the supreme Dharma characteristic. He had not expected that he would encounter such a terrifying enemy in the middle continent. Bang! 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 The hatred Dharmic body attacked continuously and everywhere its saber passed, hatred and fiend chi would surge, overwhelming everything. Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics retreated continuously. Desolate Marshal, you've lost. Tao Lord Hatred had a menacing expression and could not help but burst into laughter. Strongest monster incarnate in history? You're still going to be killed by me regardless. Zimo, run. Right then, Yan Beichen's voice sounded in Su Zimo's consciousness. Given your capabilities, you'll definitely be able to escape. Leave this place. Once you cultivate to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm, you'll definitely be able to make a comeback and suppress hatred. Su Zimo remained silent. He had many trump cards. Although Tao Lord Hatred had the upper hand in this battle, the latter would definitely not be able to kill him if he wanted to escape. However, if he were to escape, Yan Beichen and Qin Pianran would definitely die here. How could Su Zimo subject Yan Beichen and Qin Pianran to death while he escaped on his own? As though he could read Su Zimo's mind, Yan Beichen sent another voice transmission. 2 deaths is better than 3. If you escape, you can still take revenge for us in the future. Su Zimo still did not reply. No matter what, he could not abandon Yan Beichen here and leave alone. Furthermore, he was Desolate Marshal. He was the invincible Tao Lord Desolate Marshal who looked down on history. Although it was only a Green Lotus true body that did not represent his full combat strength, this Green Lotus true body had also undergone a sediment transformation after 5,000 years of cultivation. He would definitely not admit defeat so easily. There must be another solution. Chapter 1249, Tao Heart Annihilation. Chapter 1249, Tao Heart Annihilation. Narrowing his gaze, Su Zimo looked at Tao Lord Hatred who was not far away, trying his best to find a way to break out of the situation. At that moment, his 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were completely suppressed and Tao Lord Hatred had an extremely smug expression. As for the hatred Dharmic body, it emitted torrential hatred. The emotions of Tao Lord Hatred and the hatred Dharmic body were rather out of place. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. That was the weakness of Tao Lord Hatred. M-O-G-A. Su Zimo was still controlling the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics with all his might to deal with the hatred Dharmic body. At the same time, he chanted an abstruse sutra. The Sanskrit seemed to possess a mysterious power. However, Yan Beichen, Qin Pianran and even Tao Lord Hatred were unaffected when they heard that Sanskrit chant. Humph. What are you rambling on about? Tao Lord Hatred sneered. Just as he was about to mock Su Zimo properly, his expression changed. Something was amiss. The connection between him and the hatred Dharmic body seemed to have fluctuated. Although they could not sense anything from the Sanskrit, the movement of the hatred Dharmic body was a tad slower and its fiend chi became erratic as well. Before long, the sutra chant was completed. Su Zimo's expression was unchanged as he lowered his head like a gigantic Buddha. With a dignified expression, he conjured hand seals and chanted another sutra. Although that sutra was completely different from the one earlier on, it had an extremely obvious impact on the hatred Dharmic body. The scarlet light that was spewing from the eyes of the hatred Dharmic body dimmed significantly and even showed signs of disappearing. A lost expression appeared on the face of the hatred Dharmic body as well. Yan Beichen was delighted and whispered, Zimo has found a way to counter the hatred Dharmic body. Qin Pianran was surprised and elated as well. It's truly hard to imagine that a 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristic that is invincible would be affected by these simple incantations. Those incantations are probably far from simple. Every single word exuded an ancient aura that I've never seen from a cultivator of the Buddhist monasteries. They must have been lost for many years. Yen Beichen said in a deep voice. He was not wrong, those were supreme secret incantations of the ancient Buddhist monasteries. The Great Light Mantra. The Auditory Release Mantra. The Sensory Enigma Mantra. The Six Paths Diamond Mantra. In the ancient war, countless lives in Tianhuang mainland were implicated. The disciples of the Buddhist monasteries recited the 4 secret incantations to purify the souls and appease their grievances. At that moment, the 4 secret incantations were meant to purify none other than the hatred Dharmic body. The body of this heaven and earth Dharma characteristic contained endless hatred. If it was purified, Tao Lord hatred would be nothing to fear. By the time Su Zimo chanted the 2nd secret incantation, the actions of the hatred Dharmic body had already slowed down. The thunder Dharmic body, Rulai Dharmic body and heavenly fiend Dharma body finally managed to defend in the battle against the hatred Dharmic body. Both sides were in a stalemate. By the time Su Zimo chanted the 3rd secret incantation, the effect on the hatred Dharmic body was even greater and it became disadvantaged. In the ancient era, no cultivator of the Buddhist monasteries would dare to stand in the way of the fiend emperor hatred. Even the Buddha emperor who wielded the creation green lotus could not do anything to him and could only sigh. Tao Lord hatred said sternly, "Desolate marshal, you're dreaming if you think that you can suppress the hatred Dharmic body with your useless incantations." Those were definitely not empty words. Back in the ancient era, if not for the self-destruction of the fiend emperor hatred, none of the emperors would have been able to kill the resplendent fiend emperor. The fiend's chi on the body of the hatred Dharmic body was showing signs of resurrection and the blood glint in its eyes intensified. However, Su Zimo was unmoved. He looked at Tao Lord hatred and shook his head. Unfortunately, you're not the fiend emperor hatred of the past. Although you've also cultivated the hatred sutra, you're still far inferior compared to the fiend emperor hatred. You didn't go through the same experiences of the fiend emperor hatred, so you will never be able to bear the same despair as him, nor will you ever be able to comprehend the true obscurities of the hatred sutra. Tao Lord hatred shuddered. Those words were way too powerful. They were targeted at Tao Lord hatred's Tao heart and his weakness. That was indeed an indeterminate fact. From Tao Lord hatred, Su Zimo could not sense the same sadness, despair, hatred and devastation in the eyes of the hatred Dharmic body. At the end of the day, Tao Lord hatred was someone that bore the 7 emotions and 6 desires. That was his weakness. Furthermore, there was no way to make up for that weakness. If Tao Lord hatred were to truly comprehend the essence of the hatred sutra, he would end up with the same fate as the fiend emperor hatred, suicide. This was a dead end. At that moment, Tao Lord hatred's face turned pale and his Tao heart wavered for a moment. The hatred Dharmic body was connected to him and was affected as well, losing more than half of its fiend chi. There was no way Su Zimo would let such an opportunity slip. A 4th secret incantation descended. The blood glint in the eyes of the hatred Dharmic body vanished entirely. The hatred in his body had already calmed down. Without the support of that hatred, it was equivalent to losing the source of power. Under the combined attack of Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, the hatred Dharmic body was steadily defeated. In the blink of an eye, it was riddled with holes. Su Zimo's 4 secret incantations of the Buddhist monasteries were meant to purify the hatred Dharmic body and release it from its attachments. In truth, the reason why the fiend emperor hatred committed suicide back then was also because he wanted to obtain release. Everything seemed to be fated from the unknowns. The whip of the thunder Dharmic body, the hand seal of the Rulai Dharmic body and the scythe of the heavenly fiend Dharmic body descended on the hatred Dharmic body. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The 90 feet tall supreme Dharma characteristic dissipated instantly. Tao Lord hatred shuddered as though he was struck by lightning and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth with an indignant expression. He had not expected that his Tao heart would lose. Su Zimo lamented internally. If he was truly up against the Fiend Emperor hatred, his 4 secret incantations would not be able to suppress the hatred in the latter's heart. However, Tao Lord hatred was not the Fiend Emperor hatred. Su Zimo conjured hand seals that changed continuously. Suddenly, 3 balls of flames of different colors appeared beside him. The scarlet, golden and black flames converged rapidly. A red light burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella and the final essence spirit fire was injected, forming the Kacharati Tao fire that shot towards Tao Lord hatred. Swoosh! The Kacharati Tao fire descended on Tao Lord hatred. A torrential fiend chi surged out from Tao Lord hatred's body and his blood chi surged, resisting against the Kacharati Tao fire with a series of crackling sounds. Even with the searing of the Kacharati Tao fire, it did not manage to injure his bones and organs, merely burned his skin and hair to ashes. Tao Lord hatred was simply way too strong even without the full comprehension of the Hatred Sutra. Although Tao Lord hatred had already turned into a flaming man as he resisted the Kacharati Tao fire, he still let out a furious roar and charged towards Su Zimo with his fiend's saber. Su Zimo willed. The creation lotus platform descended and smashed towards Tao Lord hatred. Boom! Sparks flew as the creation lotus platform collided against the fiend's saber. The creation lotus platform was repelled. It failed to stop Tao Lord hatred in his tracks. Right then, the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics arrived at the same time and released a powerful attack. Chapter 1250, Death of a Monster Incarnate. Chapter 1250, Death of a Monster Incarnate. Piak. The whips of the thunder Dharmic body struck Tao Lord hatred heavily, causing his flesh to split open and his bones to be exposed. The Kacharati Tao fire engulfed the wound instantly and it dried up before a single drop of blood could flow. Bang! The hand seal of the Rulai Dharmic body landed on Tao Lord hatred's chest. The jarring sound of bones cracking could be heard. Tao Lord hatred's chest caved in instantly, creating a huge pit. Many broken bones even pierced his lungs. Poof! Although Tao Lord hatred managed to avoid taking damage to his vitals from the scythe of the heavenly fiend Dharma body, his abdomen was still pierced. The scythe yanked horizontally and almost sliced Tao Lord hatred's body into 2. Those 3 heavy injuries might not have been fatal for Tao Lord hatred. However, Tao Lord hatred's body still burned with the Kacharati Tao fire. Initially, his body and blood chi could hold out against the Kacharati Tao fire. Now that he was suddenly injured as such, the balance was broken instantly. The Kacharati Tao fire surged into his body quickly and burned his bones, organs, blood chi and life force. Even conjoint body mighty figures would not be able to survive if the Kacharati Tao fire burned their bones and organs. At that moment, Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were filled with injuries and riddled with holes. Unable to hold on any longer, they dissipated rapidly. This battle was way more tragic than Su Zimo had imagined. If not for the 5,000 years of accumulation in the Tao inheritance ground, he would definitely not have won this battle. There were many signs that indicated that a golden era had arrived in Tianhuang mainland. Paragons were rampant and monster incarnates rose everywhere. Existences such as Di'in and Tao Lord hatred would continue to appear one after another in the future. This was a great era that was not weaker than the ancient era. Of course, with so many paragons and monster incarnates, it also meant that a huge change was about to happen in Tianhuang mainland. If one's combat strength was insufficient, they would be reduced to ants and crushed to death under such a change. Thump. Finally, Tao Lord hatred could not hold on any longer. Leaning on his fiend's saber, he half-knelt on the ground and glared at Su Zimo fiercely through the layers of flames. Tao Lord hatred's vitality was way too exuberant. Even though he was severely injured and his organs were burned to ashes by the Kacharati Tao fire, he was not dead and had persisted till now. Given Tao Lord hatred's combat strength, Su Zimo would not be able to stop him if he wanted to escape. Unfortunately, cracks had appeared in his Tao heart. Even if he managed to escape, it would be difficult for his cultivation to advance in the future. This was a blow that was worse than death for him. Tao Lord Hatred's blood qi dried up and his life force drained rapidly. Finally, he shifted his gaze from Su Zimo to Yan Beichen and smiled. By now, he was already unrecognizable after being burned by the Kacharati Tao fire. That smile looked extremely menacing in the blazing flames. Yan Beichen, do you really think that you can escape from the cultivation world cleanly? Tao Lord Hatred's voice sounded. You are the Azura and your hands were once stained with blood. It's impossible for you to lead a peaceful life. If I, Li Heng, can find you today, someone else will do so tomorrow. You will never be able to leave the cultivation world or dream about living in peace. You wish to backtrack after stepping onto the path of the Azura? To think that the Azura would be reduced to such a state for a woman from an immortal sect. What a joke. What an incredible joke. Ha 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 ha. Tao Lord Hatred let out a shuddering laughter. Azura, you'll be killed by this woman sooner or later. I'm merely making a move first, but you'll be joining me down below real soon. I didn't lose. Tao Lord Hatred's obsession was still with Yan Beichen. Up till his death, he was still thinking about his previous failure and wanted to fight Yan Beichen to see who was stronger. However, he still went silent in the end. The ball of flames intensified and engulfed his body completely, burning it continuously. After a full half-hour, the Kacharati Tao fire gradually extinguished. Tao Lord Hatred was already burned to a crisp, leaving only a pitch-black fiend saber stabbed into the ground with a storage bag beside it. Qin Pianran stared blankly at the place where Tao Lord Hatred died, deep in her thoughts and dejected. Sensing her abnormality, Yan Beichen's heart skipped a beat and he understood. Qin Pianran was a woman after all and Tao Lord Hatred's final words triggered her. Yan Beichen extended his palm and gripped Qin Pianran gently, comforting her. Pianran, Li Hen was merely spouting nonsense because he knew he was going to die. There's no need to take his words to heart. The world is huge. I don't believe there's nowhere for just the two of us. Who will remember us after a long time? Yan Beichen's words did not eliminate Qin Pianran's worries. She was a little lost. But, I really caused you harm. You ended up in this state because you wanted to save me. She felt guilty, remorseful and worried. Yan Beichen smiled. Pianran, don't think too much. It's just an essence spirit injury and there's no danger to my life. Furthermore, you weren't the one who injured my essence spirit. How can I blame you? Pausing for a moment, he asked jokingly, or, are you thinking of leaving me because my essence spirit's injured? No. Qin Pianran blushed and her expression softened. Even if you want to leave, I won't let go. Yan Beichen gripped Qin Pianran's palm tightly and said softly. However, his tone was unusually firm. On the other side. Su Zimo advanced and arrived beside the fiend saber, glaring at it for a moment. The fiend saber had gone completely silent without any luster. It looked like a pitch-black useless saber, unlike its previous torrential might. If it was anyone else, they would not have imagined that the pitch-black saber could have released such a terrifying power. Su Zimo did not touch the fiend saber. Instead, he looked at the storage bag at the side. As the number one saber of the fiend's sex, Tao Lord Hatred definitely had many treasures in his storage bag. Among them, the most valuable was definitely the Hatred Sutra. Su Zimo went forward and opened his storage bag, scanning it carefully with his spirit consciousness. A look of disappointment flashed through his eyes. There were indeed many treasures in that storage bag. There were elixirs, Dharmic weapons, secret skills and universal treasures. Unfortunately, the Hatred Sutra was not there. Su Zimo did not use the soul-searching art. Firstly, the battle was intense earlier on and he was almost suppressed by Tao Lord Hatred's Dharma characteristic. How would he have the chance to release the soul-searching art? Secondly, in order for a chance to succeed, Su Zimo had to target those with lesser cultivation combat strength compared to him. Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo might have failed in using the soul-searching art against Tao Lord hatred, he might have suffered a backlash and injured his essence spirit instead. Chapter 1251, Saber Burial. Chapter 1251, Saber Burial. Putting away the storage bag, Su Zimo's gaze shifted to the hatred fiend saber not far away. The moment he saw the fiend's saber, he could sense how terrifying it was. Even his creation Lotus platform could barely deal with the saber. In a prolonged fight, the creation Lotus platform would inevitably succumb to the fiend's saber the same way as the mystic magnet mountain. Reaching out, Su Zimo gripped the handle of the hatred fiend's saber, wanting to pull it out and observe it carefully. However, the moment his palm touched the handle of the fiend's saber, he felt a tremendous amount of negative emotions surge into his consciousness through his fingertip, affecting his essence spirit. At the same time, he felt a sharp pain on his palm and retracted it instinctively. Lowering his head, his pupils constricted and he frowned. His palm was bleeding. Although the blood chi of this green lotus true body was not strong, its body and skin were indestructible and could fight against Incarnate Tao Lord Dharmic weapons. However, just now, he merely touched the handle of the hatred fiend's saber and his palm was injured by the power of the saber. If the blade of that fiend's saber was used on him, it would probably slice the green lotus true body into two. The weapon of an ancient fiend emperor was truly extraordinary. The hatred fiend saber was an emperor weapon to begin with. However, up till now, there were not many people who could truly use the power of that fiend saber. Interesting. Su Zimo muttered softly. To think that the hatred fiend saber would reject him so much. He did not know if it was because he possessed the inheritance of the immortal and Buddhist Taoists or some other reason. Although he did not manage to find the Hatred Sutra, this hatred fiend saber was also an utmost treasure. While he could not wield the hatred fiend saber right now, as his cultivation advanced, there was a chance for him to become the owner of this fiend saber in the future. At that thought, Su Zimo channeled his Dharmic powers and stuffed the hatred fiend saber into his storage bag, prepared to advance to the conjoint body realm before he attempted it again. Thereafter, he headed towards Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran. After taking a few steps, Su Zimo's expression changed. His palm slapped his storage bag swiftly and pulled out the hatred fiend's saber instantly, tossing it on the ground with a bewildered expression. At that moment, wisps of pitch-black fiend chi surrounded the hatred fiend saber, as though they could devour all living beings in the world. As Su Zimo tossed the hatred fiend saber out, the fiend chi on the saber gradually calmed down and dimmed once more. What's wrong? Yen Beichen noticed Su Zimo's actions and asked with a frown. That saber is way too terrifying. Su Zimo recalled what he had sensed earlier on and said sternly, that fiend's saber was in my storage bag and emitted a powerful fiend chi that corroded all the treasures in the vicinity. As he said that, Su Zimo took out a few Tao Lord Dharmic weapons from his storage bag. Yen Beichen and Qin Pianran gasped when they saw that. Those Tao Lord Dharmic weapons were all at perfect grade. However, in just a few breaths' time, the perfect grade Tao Lord Dharmic weapons were tainted by the fiend chi and dimmed, completely destroyed. What a domineering fiend saber. He could not even place it in his storage bag. Unless Su Zimo was prepared to give up on all the treasures in his storage bag. This was the first time he had encountered such a troublesome weapon up till this point of his cultivation. In fact, he did not even dare to refine the hatred fiend saber, afraid that his essence spirit would be devoured by it. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat and he suddenly said, Brother Yen, give it a try. You don't have the aura of the immortal or Buddhist cultivation techniques on you and you specialize in the fiend's sex Azura Dao. Perhaps you won't be rejected by this hatred fiend saber. When Yen Beichen heard that, he came to the side of the hatred fiend saber out of curiosity and attempted to grab its handle. There was no reaction from the fiend saber. Su Zimo nodded. True enough. Although he cultivated the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taoists and was extremely strong such that he could suppress everyone of the same cultivation realm, his aura was mixed and was rejected by the hatred fiend Saber. However, nothing of the sort happened to Yen Beichen. Su Zimo smiled. Brother Yen, it seems like I'm not fated with this hatred fiend Saber. It's better for you to accept it. If it was in the past, Yen Beichen would definitely be delighted to obtain such a powerful fiend weapon. However, at that moment, he shook his head. My essence spirit is injured. Even if the hatred fiend Saber doesn't reject me, I can't refine it. Su Zimo said hurriedly, don't worry, Brother Yen. I'll definitely think of a way to heal your injuries on your essence spirit. Once your essence spirit recovers, you can naturally refine the hatred fiend Saber. Yen Beichen smiled. I've already decided to leave the cultivation world and not participate in any disputes. I'm even prepared to give up on my Azura Saber that has been by my side for many years. There's no point in me keeping this hatred fiend Saber. The fact that Yen Beichen said that meant that he had already made up his mind and would not change it. After pausing for a moment, he continued, furthermore, this hatred fiend Saber is somewhat inauspicious. Neither of its two owners met with decent endings. That's right. This Saber is truly troublesome to deal with. I can neither be carried nor touched. Su Zimo lamented. Yen Beichen pondered for a moment. This hatred fiend Saber is inauspicious. If you don't want it, let's just bury it. All right. Su Zimo did not hesitate either. Although the hatred fiend Saber was strong, it would only bring endless trouble for him. Su Zimo waved his sleeves and with immense Dharmic powers, dug an extremely deep bottomless pit in the ground. The pit was at least a few thousand feet deep, like an endless abyss. Su Zimo tossed the hatred fiend Saber in. Turning into a black shadow, the hatred fiend Saber disappeared into the abyss and was buried when Su Zimo filled the pit with mud once more. Brother Yen, what are your plans from now on? Su Zimo asked. Yen Beichen pondered for a moment. Zimo, I have to ask you for a favor. Big brother, feel free to speak your mind. There's no need for formalities. Su Zimo waved it off. Yen Beichen said, hatred is already dead. I'm sure it won't be long before the fiend sects know about it. This matter can't be hidden for sure. There were many powerful mighty figures in the fiend sections. Furthermore, if Tao Lord Hatred had a destiny symbol in the fiend sects, the moment it shattered, the fiend sects would know about it immediately. Yen Beichen continued, after you leave this place, can you spread a piece of news saying that I fought against hatred and died in battle with both parties defeated? That way, I can make use of this battle to fake my death and escape from the cultivation world completely. From now on, Yen Beichen will cease to exist in the cultivation world. Qin Pianran and Yen Beichen held hands and remained silent at the side. No matter what decision Yen Beichen made, she would support him. Su Zimo sighed internally. He was clear that Yen Beichen's plan was not merely to fake his own death and escape, it was also for Su Zimo. If Tao Lord Hatred was akin to the second Fiend Emperor Hatred, what sort of status did he hold within the Fiend sects? If the Fiend sects knew that Tao Lord Hatred died in his hands, all of them would definitely go into a frenzy to seek him out and kill him for revenge. On the surface, Yen Beichen's action was to fake his death. However, in reality, it was also to help Su Zimo with everything. Chapter 1252, Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Chapter 1252, Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Brother Yen, I know what you're thinking. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo said, however, it's still a little hasty. There are many loopholes if you were to say that you died in battle together with hatred. I'm afraid many people will be suspicious. It's just suspicions. Yen Beichen said, I don't have a destiny symbol in the sect. As long as I hide and don't be discovered, no one will remember me after a long time. After pausing for a moment, he pulled out the Azura Saber beside him and handed it to Su Zimo. This Azura Saber is Azura sect's cornerstone Dharmic weapon. Think of a way to return this saber to Azura sect. Yan Beichen had even given up on the Azura saber that had followed him for many years. It was clear that he was determined to leave the cultivation world. Su Zimo pondered for a moment before saying, "That's easy to deal with. I'll just sell the Azura saber at an auction. Once the news is released, Azura sect cultivators will naturally come forth to redeem it." "Alright, let's do that then." Yan Beichen said, "It's inconvenient for me to show myself. I can only leave this matter to you." Su Zimo did not decline and merely asked, "Brother Yan, are you really willing?" Yan Beichen's gaze lingered on the Azura saber for a long time. He gradually hid the nostalgia in his eyes and shook his head decisively. "There's nothing to be reluctant about. I'm no longer the Azura and am not worthy of this saber. It's good for it to return as well." When Su Zimo saw that Yan Beichen was decided, he did not persuade further and cupped his fists. "I'll go settle this now and return in a few days." Su Zimo bid farewell to Yan Beichen and turned to leave. After leaving the deep mountains, he sped the entire way and saw a cultivation city around 4 hours later. It was extremely lively within and countless cultivators rode on their flying swords. Nascent souls and void reversions could be seen everywhere. A city of this level was already considered flourishing and definitely had some large auction houses and marketplaces. Hesitating for a long time, Su Zimo did not stop in the city and continued forward. This place was a little close to where Yan Beichen lived in seclusion. If the Azura saber was traded in this city, it was hard to guarantee that no one would follow through on the search for him in the vicinity. The chances of Yan Beichen being exposed would be much greater. Su Zimo continued forward and walked for a full day before arriving at another bustling ancient cultivation city. With a spin, he transformed into a burly man and descended. What happened next was much simpler. All he had to do was spread the news of the battle between Yan Beichen and Dao Lord Hatred. There was no need for any promotions for such explosive news. As long as it was released, it would create a storm that could spread through word of mouth and cause a huge uproar. This news was enough to shock the entire cultivation world. Did you hear about it? The number 1 saber of the Fiend sex, Dao Lord Hatred, returned. He sought out Yan Beichen once more to fight for the title of Azura Saber, and both of them ended up dying in battle. Isn't that right? That battle was rather tragic. It was said that mountains collapsed and rivers flowed in reverse. The sun and moon lost their colors and stars fell. I heard that Yan Beichen initially had the upper hand. In the end, Dao Lord Hatred went berserk and released his Essence Spirit's secret skill. Their Essence Spirits clashed and neither of them managed to survive. Sigh. How tragic. In a restaurant in the ancient city, many cultivators were gathered together discussing this matter. They made it sound as though they had witnessed it personally. Many a time, that was the way the sayings were. As they spread, they changed their original appearances and became mere rumors. Su Zimo sat by the window and sipped alone with an indifferent expression. Who knows if this battle was real or fake? Right then, a cultivator questioned. You don't know about that? The Azura Saber was sold at the Mystic Frost auction house a few days ago and was bought back by Azura sect. Immediately, a cultivator said, the Azura Saber belongs to the Azura. If he's not dead, why would he let this saber fall into the hands of outsiders? Did you see who sold that saber? I'm not sure. He seems to be a burly man. I heard that it's a woman. Many cultivators began to guess. After selling the Azura saber, Su Zimo was worried that something might happen and stayed in the ancient city for a few days. For the past few days, there were only various sayings and nothing unexpected happened. Su Zimo threw down a few pieces of spirit stones casually and prepared to leave. He wanted to return to the depths of the mountains to inform Yan Beichen. The moment he stood up, a cultivator not far away suddenly said, by the way, I heard that a cultivator has seen the Grand Primordium ancient temple. For real? Where? In Jade Toad Ridge. The location of the Grand Primordium ancient temple is unpredictable, and every time it appears, countless cultivators will head in to investigate. To think that it would come to the middle continent. I heard that there are countless ancient treasures in that ancient temple as well as lost elixirs and cultivation techniques. The mention of that had Su Zimo's heart skipping a beat. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir was one of the lost elixirs of the ancient era. That was an elixir that could treat Yen Beichen's essence spirit injuries. If this grand Primordium ancient temple truly existed, there was a chance that the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir could be found within. However, he had never heard of the grand Primordium ancient temple. It was better to ask around properly. Fellow Taoists, may I ask what's the background of this grand Primordium ancient temple? Su Zimo came to the group of cultivators and asked with cupped fists, smiling. This time round, he came to this ancient city to deal with the Azura Saber. Worried that something might happen, he hid his identity and changed his appearance. Even his cultivation realm was hidden and he looked ordinary. Who are you? A cultivator glanced askance at Su Zimo and smacked his lips. Why? You want to take a look at the grand Primordium ancient temple as well? A cultivator asked with a smile and mocking expression. That's my intention. Su Zimo nodded. Ha 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 ha. The group of cultivators exchanged glances and burst into laughter, looking at Su Zimo as though they were looking at an idiot. You really think you're strong enough to want to go to the grand Primordium ancient temple? A void reversion sneered, even I, Dao being Qing Ming, don't dare to step foot into the grand Primordium ancient temple. Who do you think you are? Su Zimo's expression turned cold as he released his aura as a Dharma characteristic and asked coldly, repeat that again? The moment he said that, the temperature of the entire restaurant dipped. Although nascent souls and void reversions could be seen everywhere in the ancient city, there were not many Dharma characteristic Tao lords. Most of the cultivators were nascent souls and there were only a few void reversions. All of them were stunned by Su Zimo's Dharma characteristic aura on the spot with pale expressions. Tao Lord, please calm down. I only offended you because I didn't know your identity. Please spare my life, Tao Lord. The void reversion was so scared that sweat broke out on his forehead as he bowed repeatedly. The cultivators who burst into laughter earlier on did not dare to say anything either. If a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord wanted to kill them in a fit of anger, nobody could stop him. Chapter 1253, Righteousness. Chapter 1253, Righteousness. Right now, Su Zimo was only revealing his Dharma characteristic aura. If he revealed his true appearance and name, those cultivators would be scared out of their wits and kneel on the ground with wobbly legs. One of the cultivators said hurriedly, we don't know the origin of this grand Primordium ancient temple either. We only heard that it appeared for the first time in the south region more than 100 years ago. Thereafter, every once in a while, the grand Primordium ancient temple would appear somewhere in Tianhuang mainland and attract countless cultivators who would travel for it. Su Zimo was confused. That was indeed strange. Things such as ancient ruins and ancestral cave abodes were mostly fixed in a single location. This was the first time that Su Zimo had heard of an ancient temple that shifted locations. I heard that when the Grand Primordium ancient temple descended in the south region, a cultivator entered by accident and obtained an extremely powerful ancient Dharmic weapon. It caused quite a stir and many cultivators went to explore it. Pausing for a moment, the cultivator's eyes revealed a hint of fear. However, it's already not bad if one of the 10 cultivators that entered this Grand Primordium ancient temple could make it out alive. Su Zimo frowned and asked, what are the realms of the cultivators that went to explore? The weakest are at the Dharma characteristic realm. I heard that there are even some conjoint body mighty figures. The cultivators at the side rushed to reply. Su Zimo asked, something happened to the conjoint body mighty figures that entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple as well? I heard that over the years, at least 100 conjoint body mighty figures have entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple and have never come out ever since. A cultivator grinned with a wary expression. 100 conjoint body mighty figures. That was a huge figure. For example, Dragon Tiger sect, one of the upper sects, had less than 10 conjoint body mighty figures. From the looks of it, this Grand Primordium ancient temple was definitely an extremely dangerous place. Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo asked again, even so, there are still cultivators who want to explore it? That's right. A void reversion nodded. It said that cultivators who can come out of the Grand Primordium ancient temple alive will indeed benefit immensely. There are some lost ancient elixirs and top-tier cultivation techniques. I also heard that there was once a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord who was in his twilight years and entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple. He obtained some sort of opportunity and managed to break through to the conjoint body realm. Will the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir be in the Grand Primordium ancient temple? Su Zimo asked again. Yes. A cultivator said hurriedly, I heard that a conjoint body mighty figure once came out alive and obtained the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir. Su Zimo nodded and made up his mind. No matter how dangerous this Grand Primordium ancient temple was, he had to give it a shot. Su Zimo was already decided and left the restaurant, preparing to bid farewell to Yen Beichen and head to the Grand Primordium ancient temple. In the bamboo forest deep in the mountains. In the past few days, the traces left behind by the battle had been cleaned up. With the capabilities of Yen Beichen and Qin Pian Ran, they easily rebuilt a wooden house that sat there in a simple manner. What? You're going to the Grand Primordium ancient temple? In the wooden house, Yen Beichen shook his head resolutely when he heard Su Zimo's plan. No, that's too dangerous. Big brother, you know about the Grand Primordium ancient temple? Su Zimo asked. I don't know much either. The Grand Primordium ancient temple is extremely mysterious. Although it has only appeared for a short 100-odd years, countless conjoint body mighty figures have died in it over the years. You're only at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. You must not go. Su Zimo shook his head without saying anything. It was clear that he had made up his mind. Yen Beichen said earnestly, Zimo, the descent of the Grand Primordium ancient temple in the Middle Continent will definitely attract many paragons and monster incarnates. With so many powerful figures as well as conjoint body mighty figures present, it's too dangerous for you to go alone. Su Zimo smiled. Back then, you merely heard that Tao Lord Immortal Sword and the others wanted to cause trouble for me at 100 Refinement Sect before you headed there alone and slaughtered 9 Tao Lords outside the sect single-handedly. Pausing for a moment, he said softly, you had just only entered the Dharma characteristic realm at that time as well. That scene was unforgettable for Su Zimo. How heroic was that? That was the righteousness of the Azura. Where righteousness lies, even if millions of people stand against it, it will not change. Although Yen Beichen was only at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm, he fought against Tao Lord Immortal Sword and other Tao Lords who had been famous for a long time without hesitation. Because of that, his essence spirit was injured and had yet to recover. Since there was a chance that there might be a 9 Revolutions Soul Returned Elixir in the Grand Primordium ancient temple, Su Zimo had to take it no matter what. Yen Beichen sighed gently and did not persuade further. They had different personalities and cultivated different saber techniques. However, all of them were loyal people. Yen Beichen pondered for a moment. I heard that the Grand Primordium ancient temple has just descended, but there's a Dharmic power barrier outside. Cultivators can only enter after the barrier is weakened after a period of time. Zimo, don't be in a hurry to go. Stay here and cultivate during this period of time. If you can advance to the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm, your heaven and earth Dharma characteristic will strengthen. With 3 Dharma characteristics, your combat strength will definitely increase to a new level and you will be able to protect yourself. Yes. Su Zimo nodded. I've gained quite a bit from the battle with hatred. I'm just about to calm down and comprehend them properly. Zimo, I'll go with you when the time comes. Qin Pianran said, this matter concerns Beichen and I can't let you take the risk alone. There's no need. Su Zimo declined with a smile. If I travel alone, I can escape if there's any danger. However, if there's anyone else, I'll feel restricted instead. Furthermore, Big Brother is injured. Sister Qin, just stay here with him and await good news from me. Because of Yen Beichen, it would seem distant if they constantly referred to one another as fellow Taoists. As such, they changed the way they addressed one another. Qin Pianran was a little hesitant. Yen Beichen said, "Let Zimo go alone. I reckon that many paragons and monster incarnates of super sects will be attracted to this trip to the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. You might attract trouble if you go." Qin Pianran nodded. She was a cultivator of Sword Sect. Now that she was with the notorious Azura of the Fiend's sects, Sword Sect must have kicked her out of the sect a long time ago and regarded as a traitor of the immortal sects and disgrace of Sword Sect. If she encountered acquaintances from Sword Sect, there was a high chance that both parties would clash. At that thought, Qin Pianran gave up on that thought and stood up. She bowed deeply to Su Zimo and said sincerely, "Thank you, Zimo. Sister Qin, you're too kind." Su Zimo helped her up hurriedly. Qin Pianran smiled. "I can't help much either. During this period of time, I'll make a few side dishes for you to try." At the side, Yen Beichen could not help but exclaim, "Pianran's culinary skills are truly decent. I'll get to enjoy as well thanks to you." At their cultivation realm, they were already at the realm of Anidia. However, even immortals had the desire to eat and it was unavoidable. For the next month, Su Zimo stayed in the bamboo forest and cultivated in silence. Finally, a month later, he sensed the opportunity for a breakthrough. Chapter 1254, Heavenly Secrets. Chapter 1254, Heavenly Secrets. From early-stage Dharma characteristic to mid-stage Dharma characteristic this time round, it took a mere 6 years. His cultivation speed was shockingly fast. The further one cultivated, the more time and energy they would require to break through a minor realm. Although it was only at the early stage to mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm, it was normal for some Dharma characteristic Tao lords to spend hundreds or even thousands of years. Part of the reason why Su Zimo was able to break through to the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm in 6 years was because of his close to 5,000 years of accumulation in the Tao inheritance ground. On the other hand, it was also because of his battle with Tao Lord Hatred. This battle not only gave Su Zimo many insights, but also immense pressure. His 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were almost suppressed by the 90 feet supreme Dharma characteristic. Under that pressure, the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics grew rapidly and became even more condensed. Everything happened naturally when he broke through to the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. As for his 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, they had already climbed to a height of 87 feet. This was the level of the number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic rankings. Although Tao Lord Immortal Sword's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic was 89 feet tall, it was only 85 feet tall when he first became the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking. Given Su Zimo's current combat strength, he could sweep through anyone of the same cultivation realm and suppress all Tao lords. Even ordinary conjoint body mighty figures were not his match. Of course, if he encountered some paragons and monster incarnates of the conjoint body realm, especially those of super sects, it was unknown if Su Zimo could defeat them. However, one thing was certain, even conjoint body mighty figures of super sects would not be able to attempt to kill him as they did in the past. With 387 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, Su Zimo could carve out a path even if he was surrounded by conjoint body mighty figures. Of course, the danger of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple did not merely come from other cultivators. The mysterious ancient temple was a dangerous place to begin with. Nobody knew what dangers lurked within. The cultivators that survived did not encounter any danger. However, nobody knew what the cultivators who met with danger saw. That was because they had already died within. This day, after Su Zimo broke through to the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm, he bid farewell to Yen Beichen and was prepared to head to the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. "Zimo, you must be careful. If the situation doesn't look good, don't force yourself and retreat in time." Yen Beichen reminded, "After all, my essence spirit is only injured. Nothing must happen to you. Don't worry." Su Zimo smiled and nodded. I still want to drink with you after I'm back. Alright, I'll wait for you. Yen Beichen laughed as well. Thereafter, Su Zimo leaped up and auspicious clouds floated beneath his feet. He sped into the distance and disappeared before long. Sword Sect, Immortal Sword Dao Residence. Dao Lord Immortal Sword was sitting in his Dao residence with Dao Lord Cloud Rain beside him. Both of them had once escaped from Yen Beichen's hands, and after that calamity, their relationship became even closer and they met frequently. You mean to say that Hatred and the Azura died in battle? Dao Lord Immortal Sword frowned slightly and asked when he heard the news from Dao Lord Cloud Rain. Dao Lord Cloud Rain nodded. That's the rumor outside. There were many mixed, different sayings about the exact circumstances, but none of the cultivators saw it personally. That's impossible. Dao Lord Immortal Sword shook his head. Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked, why do you say that? Dao Lord Immortal Sword harumphed. That saying can deceive others, but how can it deceive us? You and I fought against the Azura before. Although we were defeated, he did not get off well either. His essence spirit must have been injured. Although injuries to the essence spirit are difficult to heal, it's not impossible. I heard that the Elixir Yang's sect elder gave the Azura a 9 revolutions soul return elixir, Dao Lord Cloud Rain said indifferently. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said, even if the Azura's essence spirit is fine, only 20 years have passed. His cultivation is at most at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. As for Hatred, he's at the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. Ever since he reappeared, he hasn't even used his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic and has already suppressed a titular disciple of the Fiend sections. No matter how strong the Azura is, how can he leap realms and die in battle with Hatred? You mean to say that Hatred killed the Azura? Dao Lord Cloud Rain asked. It's hard to tell. There's definitely something fishy about this, Dao Lord Immortal Sword shook his head. Pausing for a moment, Dao Lord Cloud Rain seemed to have thought of something and suddenly asked, right, have you found that childhood sweetheart junior sister of yours yet? At the mention of that, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes flashed with a dark glint. Not yet. Dao Lord Cloud Rain said with a fake smile, I heard that your junior sister was captured by the Azura previously. She's probably dead by now. No. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said coldly. Qin Pianran's destiny symbol was in Sword Sect and was intact, it was clear that she was not dead. Oh. Dao Lord Cloud Rain laughed. That's interesting. She was captured by the Azura who achieved his Dao through killing but did not die or return. He's a single man and she's a single woman. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's expression darkened completely as he said coldly, if that slut truly has an affair with the Azura of the Fiend sects, she'll be the shame of our Sword Sect. If I find her, I'll definitely kill her personally. At that moment, Dao Lord Immortal Sword had completely forgotten that the slut he was referring to had saved his life. The world is vast. Who can find her if she truly wishes to hide? Dao Lord Cloud Rain shrugged his shoulders. Not necessarily. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said proudly, the successor of a certain place understands heaven and earth. He's able to peer into mysteries and divine everything in this world. Enigma Palace? Dao Lord Cloud Rain narrowed his eyes. Right then, a cultivator with fluttering robes strode over from outside the Dao Talisman door. He was handsome and wore a Confucian crown, holding a folding fan with a faint smile on his face. Dao Lord Cloud Rain's spirit consciousness scanned the person. He could not see through this cultivator's cultivation realm. Dao Lord Immortal Sword stood up to welcome him and revealed a smile as he shouted, fellow Daoist Heavenly Secrets, you've come from a long distance. Please pardon me for not welcoming you from afar. It's fine, there's no need to stand on courtesy between us. Heavenly Secrets had a warm smile that made one feel like they were bathing in a spring breeze without any resistance. Dao Lord Immortal Sword introduced to Dao Lord Cloud Rain, this is fellow Daoist Heavenly Secrets of Enigma Palace and this is Cloud Rain Sects. Before Dao Lord Immortal Sword could finish, Dao Lord Heavenly Secret smiled. 5,000 years ago, He was number 2 on the Dharma characteristic ranking and is now the titular disciple of Cloud Rain's sect. Tao Lord Cloud Rain nodded to himself. He was certain that they had never met before. However, this Heavenly Secrets knew of his identity and background. He was indeed skilled. As the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking and a titular disciple of Sword Sect, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had a noble status, and it was not surprising for him to befriend cultivators of Enigma Palace. Tao Lord Immortal Sword said, "Fellow Taoist Heavenly Secrets, I'm not going to stand on courtesy with you. The reason why I invited you here this time round is because I want you to help me find someone." She was originally a cultivator of Sword Sect, Qin Pian Ran. Heavenly Secrets shook his head. "I'm not at the level where I can find someone with just a single name. What if I have her destiny symbol?" Tao Lord Immortal Sword asked with a narrowed gaze. Heavenly Secrets smiled gently. "That will be easy then." Chapter 1255, Location of the Buddha Bead. Chapter 1255, Location of the Buddha Bead. To be able to divine the other party's location with a destiny symbol, his methods were truly unfathomable. There was naturally a reason why Enigma Palace was able to remain standing for so long as a super sect in Tianhuang mainland. Cultivators of Enigma Palace rarely participated in the fights between the various factions of the cultivation world, or did they take part in events such as the Golden Core Phenomenon ranking or Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristic ranking. However, no one dared to look down on the cultivators of Enigma Palace. Back in the Tao Inheritance Ground, the current titular disciple of Enigma Palace, Lin Xuanji, managed to rescue Su Zimo from the hands of Di'in and survive for more than 10 days after being hunted down by the latter. It was clear how strong he was. Tao Lord Cloud Rain had met Lin Xuanji before. However, he felt that this Heavenly Secrets was even more mysterious and unfathomable than Lin Xuanji. He was also wary of this cultivator who was all-knowing, mysterious and possessed strange methods, afraid that his background would be seen through. However, Tao Lord Cloud Rain was extremely scheming and praised with a smile on his face. "Fellow Taoist, you sure are capable. I'm impressed. These things are not worth mentioning." Heavenly Secrets still had a faint smile on his face. "I can't divine everybody. For example, given someone of your cultivation realm, fellow Taoist Cloud Rain, I won't be able to divine you even if I had your destiny symbol." He seemed to have seen through Tao Lord Cloud Rain's worries and said casually. Heavenly Secrets continued, "As for Qin Pian Ran that Immortal Sword mentioned, it's slightly easier. However, given her cultivation realm, she might sense something." "Right." Suddenly, Tao Lord Immortal Sword asked, "Regarding the battle a few days ago where both the Azura and Hatred died, what do you think about it, fellow Taoist? If I'm not wrong, Hatred should be dead." Heavenly Secrets said indifferently, "As for the Azura, I can't divine it yet. I don't believe that the Azura can kill Hatred. He's not at that level yet. However, if it's not the Azura, who could have killed Hatred?" Tao Lord Immortal Sword frowned. Given the combat strength he displayed, even conjoint body mighty figures might not be able to kill him. Heavenly Secrets was silent as well. He was not at the realm of knowing everything yet. Tao Lord Immortal Sword pondered for a moment and a name flashed through his mind. Narrowing his eyes, he murmured, "Could it be him?" "Who?" Tao Lord Cloud Rain could not help but ask. "Desolate Marshal." Tao Lord Immortal Sword said slowly, "I heard that after Desolate Marshal entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he condensed 2 Heaven and Earth Dharma characteristics and destroyed Dragon Tiger sect, causing the mighty figures of the North region to bow down and submit to him. His reputation has already reached its limits." "You mean to say that Desolate Marshal has arrived in the Middle Continent?" A cold glint flashed through Tao Lord Cloud Rain's eyes as well. Both of them hated Su Zimo to the core. Their clones that they had cultivated for many years were destroyed in Thousand Demon Valley. Thereafter, they were hunted by the Azura outside 100 Refinement sect and almost lost their lives. It was also because of Su Zimo. Furthermore, the heaven-slaying sword art that Tao Lord Immortal Sword lusted for was snatched away by Su Zimo as well. This matter was like a thorn that had been stuck in his heart for many years. It shouldn't be Desolate Marshal. He's only at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. 285 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics shouldn't be a threat. Heavenly Secrets smiled gently. At the very least, given fellow Daoist Immortal Sword's current combat strength, your 89 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristic is enough to suppress him. Yes. Dao Lord Immortal Sword nodded. However, given the lad's capabilities, I'm afraid I won't be able to stop him if he wishes to escape. His potential is too great and will ultimately be a problem for us. If we want to deal with Desolate Marshal, we'll have to seek your help at that time, fellow Daoist Heavenly Secrets. No problem. Heavenly Secrets nodded. Dao Lord Cloud Rain looked at Heavenly Secrets and suddenly said, I heard that this generation's titular disciple of Enigma Palace is rather close to Desolate Marshal. Heavenly Secrets' expression was unchanged as he maintained the smile on his face. Lin Xuanji, Fufu. He's not enough to stop me if I want to deal with someone. Dao Lord Cloud Rain understood. It was clear that Xuanji and Heavenly Secrets were at odds. There's one more thing. Suddenly, Dao Lord Cloud Rain said, I heard that the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple has descended in the Middle Continent. Since the three of us are gathered, why don't we head over and explore? Given our capabilities, the three of us should be able to avoid any danger. Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Dao Lord Immortal Sword was tempted as well. It was said that the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple contained many treasures and secret skills. He had already cultivated to the perfected Dharma characteristic realm. If he entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple and obtained a few treasures and some opportunities, he would definitely be able to advance to the conjoint body realm immediately. I'd advise the two of you not to go. Heavenly Secrets had a smile on his face the entire time after he entered the cave abode. However, the smile on his face vanished the moment he heard the words, Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Fellow Daoist, is there something you know? Dao Lord Immortal Sword's heart skipped a beat and he could not help but ask. Heavenly Secrets merely shook his head and a strange blood glint flashed through the depths of his eyes as he sneered, those cultivators that gather there are merely the greedy ones. They will eventually end up paving the road for others to benefit. Jade Toad Ridge was originally an ordinary mountain forest in the Middle Continent. Ridges as such could be seen everywhere in the Middle Continent. However, in the past month, Jade Toad Ridge had turned lively with many cultivators from all over the place. Furthermore, as time passed by, the number of cultivators that arrived at Jade Toad Ridge increased. What was even more frightening was that the cultivation realms of these cultivators were extremely high. Even those standing outside were at the Void Reversion realm. Almost all the cultivators who dared to venture deep into Jade Toad Ridge were Dharma characteristic Dao Lords. In the depths of Jade Toad Ridge, there were even traces of conjoint body mighty figures. The reason why all those powerful cultivators were gathered was because of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple that had suddenly appeared in Tianhuang mainland more than 100 years ago. This day, Su Zimo arrived at Jade Toad Ridge. Many void reversions lingered around the outer perimeter of Jade Toad Ridge and did not dare to venture deep, discussing fervently. Have you heard? A great treasure has appeared in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple this time round. What? It's said to be a treasure from tens of thousands of years ago. They are 2 Buddha beads that were lost from the Mingwang prayer beads. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The Mingwang prayer beads had 6 Buddha beads that corresponded to different Buddhist Dharmic seals and Daming mantra respectively. Right now, Su Zimo had 4 Buddha beads on his left wrist and 2 of them were lost. For the past tens of thousands of years, there had been no news of them. Those 2 Buddha beads contained the strongest 2 Daming Dharmic seals. To think that the 2 Buddha beads would be in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Under normal circumstances, Su Zimo should be delighted when he heard the location of the Buddha beads. However, for some reason, he felt that something was amiss. It was normal for Buddha beads to be in an ancient temple. However, this ancient temple only appeared more than 100 years ago. How could Buddha beads that were lost for tens of thousands of years be inside? After pondering for a long time, Su Zimo still could not understand as he shook his head and entered Jade Toad Ridge. Be it the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir or the 2 Buddha beads, he had to enter the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple to check things out. Chapter 1256, Tao Lord Sunset Cloud. Chapter 1256, Tao Lord Sunset Cloud. Deeper inside, the number of Dharma characteristic Tao Lords gathered in Jade Toad Ridge increased and even exceeded 1,000. As Su Zimo advanced, he finally caught sight of the legendary Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Initially, he was confused. It was just an ancient temple. How large could it be such that it was worth exploring? It was unlikely that the ancient temple could accommodate the number of cultivators gathered here. However, a deep look of shock flashed through Su Zimo's eyes the moment he caught sight of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was way too huge. Or rather, this ancient temple could no longer be described simply as huge. Instead, it was majestic and extravagant, like a massive creature that had experienced the baptism of countless years that sat in the depths of a mountain. The capital of Great Zhou was grand enough to accommodate millions of people with ease. However, this Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was dozens of times larger than the capital of Great Zhou. Su Zimo arrived at the outer perimeter of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple and stood in midair. Compared to the ancient temple, his body was like a speck of dust on the surface. It was no wonder why so many cultivators coveted the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Even Su Zimo was shocked when he saw the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. He would not believe that there were no treasures within it. Su Zimo looked at the ancient temple and his vision blurred. The ancient temple seemed to have transformed into a bottomless abyss that wanted to devour everything. Suddenly, Su Zimo felt his heart race. His heart skipped a beat. This was an impulse and a warning from his spirit perception. It was definitely not a coincidence. Seems like the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple is truly a dangerous place. Su Zimo lamented internally and looked around with a grim expression. He was already on guard before entering the ancient temple. There are so many experts this time round. If a great treasure truly appears, it will definitely cause a bloodbath. That's for sure. I heard that more than 10 Tao Lords who were on the previous Dharma characteristic ranking are here. That's right. I heard that 2 Buddha beads have appeared and the second on the previous Dharma characteristic ranking, Monk Black Gold of Diamond Monastery, has arrived. Back when Monk Black Gold fought for the number 1 of the Dharma characteristic ranking, he was only defeated by Tao Lord Immortal Sword. I wonder how high his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic has grown after 1,000 years. In my opinion, even Dharma characteristic Tao Lords have to step aside. At that time, the ancient temple will become a battlefield for conjoint body mighty figures. Many a time, opportunities are important. Even though conjoint body mighty figures are strong, they might not be able to obtain treasures. Many Dharma characteristic Tao Lords lingered around the vicinity of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Su Zimo could clearly see that there was a thin barrier of Dharmic powers surrounding the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple that was weakening as time passed. Before long, the Dharmic power barrier would not be able to stop the cultivators here. Su Zimo attracted quite a bit of attention when he arrived near the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. However, those cultivators merely swept their gazes at him and paid no more attention. Almost everyone in the cultivation world knew of Tao Lord Desolate Marshal. However, not many cultivators had seen him before. It was especially so for the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords present. Most of them had been famous for a long time while Su Zimo had just entered the Dharma characteristic realm and had yet to have the chance to interact with them. Furthermore, all the cultivators were focused on the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple right now and Su Zimo's arrival did not cause much of a stir. Right then, more than 10 cultivators arrived not far away. They wore Chaos Essence Sect's robes and had powerful auras. They were Dharma characteristic Tao Lords of Chaos Essence Sect. The Tao Lord of Chaos Essence Sect in the lead rode on a rat that was as large as an elephant. It was filled with golden fur, and its eyes were small and keen. It bared its sharp teeth and was extremely ferocious. Su Zimo definitely had a deep feud with Chaos Essence Sect. To a certain extent, Chaos Essence Sect hated Su Zimo even more than Glass Palace and other sects. In this generation, Chaos Essence Sect originally gave birth to two monster incarnates, Yi Tiancheng and Di Yin. They were known as the Chaos Essence Twin Paragons and were the hope of Chaos Essence Sect's rise. Unfortunately, the two monster incarnates died in Su Zimo's hands one after another. That was a huge blow for Chaos Essence Sect. Later on, Chaos Essence Sect's half-martial ancestor pursued Su Zimo and even hunted him down to the Dragon Burial Valley where a conjoint body mighty figure died, shocking Tianhuang mainland. The hunt towards Su Zimo came to an end there. Chaos Essence Sect suffered immense losses and many deaths. More than 10 years later, Su Zimo reconstructed his Green Lotus true body and returned in a domineering manner. However, there were no more outstanding monster incarnates of Chaos Essence Sect that rose in recent years. The fact that Su Zimo killed Di Yin and Yi Tiancheng was akin to severing Chaos Essence Sect's fortune. Dao Lord Sunset Cloud of Chaos Essence Sect is here. He was 11th of the previous Dharma characteristic realm. It's said that the demon beast beneath Dao Lord Sunset Cloud is a pure-blooded ferocious beast, the Gold-Eater Rat. It specializes in devouring divine weapons to cultivate and is extremely violent. Furthermore, the Gold-Eater Rat has an extremely keen sense of smell and can sniff out many metal-type treasures. Even the layers of barriers can't stop its sense of smell. I heard that the Gold-Eater Rat doesn't even fancy ordinary treasures. Some cultivators pointed to the gigantic rat beneath Dao Lord Sunset Cloud and whispered. Right then, the Gold-Eater Rat seemed to have sensed something and stuck its nose out repeatedly, sniffing wildly in the air. Finally, it turned around and looked towards Su Zimo. An obscure spirit consciousness fluctuation spread between the Gold-Eater Rat and Dao Lord Sunset Cloud. Before long, Dao Lord Sunset Cloud's gaze landed on Su Zimo. Su Zimo looked straight with a calm expression. Dao Lord Sunset Cloud smirked coldly and led the dozens of Dao Lords behind him towards Su Zimo. The Dharma characteristic Dao Lords gradually separated and stood in a seemingly casual manner. However, they surrounded Su Zimo vaguely. Look, something's happening over there. Some cultivators noticed this and exclaimed excitedly. The Gold-Eater Rat must have discovered a treasure and Dao Lord Sunset Cloud wants to snatch it. Humph, that itinerant cultivator came alone and he's only at the Dharma characteristic realm. If he truly is in possession of great treasures, who else is a better target to rob? Many cultivators watched coldly from the sidelines. Naturally, no one would stand up for Su Zimo for something as such. Furthermore, the other party was from a super sect like Chaos Essence Sect. Right then, a cultivator in the crowd exclaimed softly, that green-robed cultivator looks familiar. He seems to be the legendary Dao Lord Desolate Marshal. The words Dao Lord Desolate Marshal caused a huge stir. However, Dao Lord Sunset Cloud and the others did not hear the clamor around the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. That can't be. Dao Lord Desolate Marshal is far away in the North region. Why would he come all the way to the Middle Continent for the sake of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple? Green robes, black hair, refined features that matched the appearance of the legendary Desolate Marshal. Not far away, a commotion broke out in the crowd. At that moment, Dao Lord Sunset Cloud rode on his Gold-Eater Rat and had already arrived before Su Zimo, looking down at him. Chapter 1257, I'm Desolate Marshal. Chapter 1257, I'm Desolate Marshal. Hand it over. Dao Lord Sunset Cloud came before Su Zimo and did not waste time talking to him. In fact, he could not even be bothered to ask for Su Zimo's name and sect. He had the confidence and strength. Firstly, the Dharma characteristic ranking encompassed almost all the strongest paragons and monster incarnates of Tianhuang mainland. As the 11th of the Dharma characteristic ranking, he had never seen this green-robed cultivator before. If someone couldn't even make it onto the Dharma characteristic ranking, the person was naturally not qualified to fight him. Secondly, he was backed by Chaos Essence sect. However, this green-robed cultivator did not have any emblem of any sect or faction on him. He was alone, and there was a high chance that he was an itinerant cultivator. If an itinerant cultivator had a treasure that could tempt the gold-eater rat, what did he have to fear? Su Zimo frowned slightly and asked, "Hand over what?" "You have a treasure of Chaos Essence sect with you." Tao Lord Sunset Cloud said coldly, "My demon beast can sense everything clearly. I'd advise you to hand it over obediently, and perhaps you might be able to survive." Many cultivators watching sneered internally. This was clearly nonsense. Even if this green-robed cultivator had Chaos Essence sect's treasure, how could a beast differentiate it? Initially, Su Zimo was puzzled as to what treasure of his the beast set its sights on. The truly valuable treasures in his possession were the Creation Lotus Platform, Mystic Magnet Mountain and Mingwang Prayer Beads. However, those three treasures were not made of any metal. Su Zimo quickly understood. It was the Green Lotus True Body. His Green Lotus True Body was made from the stem of the creation Green Lotus, and the leaves of the lotus were his skin. It was created by fusing many connate Dharmic weapons. Di Yin's Chaos Essence Bell and Dragon Battling Truncheon. Dao being Glass's Rainbow Glazed Pagoda. Dao being Heavenly Dipper's Saber. Dao being Zephyr Thunder's Zephyr Thunder Hammer. The Gold-Eater rat must have sensed the aura of those connate Dharmic weapons. Even after all these years, Chaos Essence sect is still so overbearing in its ways. Su Zimo said meaningfully. If one thought about it carefully, they would be able to tell that something was amiss. However, Tao Lord Sunset Cloud did not take Su Zimo seriously at all and would naturally not think about what he was implying. He said proudly, "Chaos Essence sect has always been like this. I thought that your sect would be more restrained after the death of the Chaos Essence twin paragons. To think that you guys haven't improved at all." Su Zimo's expression turned cold. "You must have a death wish." Tao Lord Sunset Cloud narrowed his eyes and suddenly turned murderous. The other Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect had ugly expressions as well. At that time, Di Yin and Yi Tiancheng were extremely famous and were invincible among their peers. To think that they would be killed by Desolate Martial one after another, that was Chaos Essence sect's scar. But now, the green-robed cultivator before them had actually torn the scar in front of so many cultivators. How could the Chaos Essence sect cultivators not be enraged? Su Zimo said indifferently, "It's best if you guys don't provoke me. I'm here today because of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, and I don't want to create unnecessary trouble." That was indeed what Su Zimo thought. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was filled with unknowns. He did not want to engage in a battle with others outside before entering the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple and seeing anything. Of course, that was also his final warning. However, that warning enraged Tao Lord Sunset Cloud and the others completely. "Who are you? How dare you threaten me?" He slapped his storage bag and summoned a flying sword, piercing it towards Su Zimo. Turning into a streak of light, the flying sword burst forth with a bedazzling light at an extremely fast speed. Standing on the spot, Su Zimo did not move at all. In fact, he did not even summon his Dharmic weapon or dodge. However, his eyes burned brightly as he suddenly spoke and said 3 words. "I'm Desolate Martial." Those words exploded in the crowd like thunder. Right after, just as the flying sword was about to pierce Su Zimo's glabella, he extended his fair palm and caught the incoming flying sword. The flying sword had 6 Dharmic patterns and was a connate Tao Lord Dharmic weapon. It was extremely sharp and could slice metal like mud. Even supreme-grade Tao Lord Dharmic weapons could be severed by a single slash, let alone flesh and blood. However, under countless gazes, the connate Tao Lord Dharmic weapon was gripped tightly by Su Zimo's palm and could not move at all. The most terrifying thing was that there was no blood on Su Zimo's palm. In other words, the connate Tao Lord Dharmic weapon did not even manage to pierce Su Zimo's skin. He received a Khanate Tao Lord Dharmic weapon with his body but was completely fine. How was that possible? The crowd fell into an uproar. What shocked many cultivators even more was the words, "I'm Desolate Martial." There was nothing more shocking than those words. Although there were countless Tao titles in Tianhuang mainland, there was only a single person who dared to use the Tao title Desolate Martial. Tao Lord Desolate Martial had arrived in the Middle Continent. Tao Lord Sunset Cloud was stunned as well. He had calculated everything and could even imagine how Su Zimo should react. He was even prepared for many follow-up attacks. However, this was the only thing he did not predict. "I'm Desolate Martial." Those words caused a boom in his mind and he was momentarily dazed. "Not only do I dare to threaten you, I even dare to kill you." Su Zimo took advantage of the moment and Tao Lord Sunset Cloud was in a daze and suddenly attacked. He flipped the flying sword in his hands and threw it out, piercing towards Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's head at an even faster speed. Tao Lord Sunset Cloud was a paragon ranked 11 on the Dharma characteristic ranking after all. In a flash, he reacted and hurriedly condensed his essence spirit, controlling the incoming flying sword to deviate to the side. That flying sword was his destiny Dharmic weapon. Even so, the power of Su Zimo's sword toss nearly exceeded his control. The flying sword merely shifted slightly and brushed past Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's cheek, causing a bloodied wound to appear instantly. If he had reacted slower, the flying sword would have pierced his head. Instantly, Tao Lord Sunset Cloud broke out in cold sweat. There was a boom. A phantom rose from Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's body and rose rapidly. A heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. How could Tao Lord Sunset Cloud be careless after knowing Su Zimo's identity? He was prepared to summon his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic right away to protect himself. However, the moment Su Zimo threw out the flying sword, a blinding sword chi burst forth from his fingertip. It was a vast expanse of white. The killing intent was earth-shaking. Heaven-slaying sword art. Poof! The sword chi entered Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's glabella and pierced a bloody hole in his head. His essence spirit was destroyed on the spot and he could not have been more dead. Before his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic could truly be formed, it was killed by the heaven-slaying sword chi. The demon beast, the gold-eater rat, beneath him was sliced into two by the heaven-slaying sword chi as well and died on the spot. Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's eyes gradually dimmed. He was still a step too late. If he had released his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, he would not have been defeated so quickly given his combat strength. Unfortunately, in a fight between experts, an instant was everything. The moment Sunset Cloud heard the words, "I'm Desolate Martial," that momentary lapse of attention was enough to determine his death. Chapter 1258, Boundless Golden Light. Chapter 1258, Boundless Golden Light. Desolate Martial, how dare you? A Tao Lord of Chaos Essence sect hollered, "We have a mighty figure nearby and yet you dare to be so arrogant? Do you really think that Chaos Essence sect is weak?" Su Zimo sneered coldly and put away Tao Lord Sunset Cloud's storage bag casually. "I don't know if Chaos Essence sect is weak. However, since this person dared to attack me, I'll kill him." To the cultivators, this was a normal occurrence. Tao Lord Sunset Cloud was foolish and wanted to snatch Desolate Martial's treasure. He deserved to be killed. A Tao Lord of Chaos Essence sect had long taken out a messenger talisman from his storage bag and crushed it. If nothing went wrong, a conjoint body mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect would arrive soon. Su Zimo frowned. It was not that he was afraid of Chaos Essence sect's mighty figure. If he released his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, he could suppress ordinary conjoint body mighty figures and could even fight against Chaos Essence sect's mighty figure. However, the Grand Primordium ancient temple was about to open up and the situation inside was unknown. Condensing a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to fight against a mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect would definitely require a lot of energy. If anything were to happen in the Grand Primordium ancient temple, things would be troublesome. Furthermore, he had yet to see the 9 revolutions soul return elixir and Buddha beads. Once the Buddha beads appeared, they would cause a huge battle as well. That was the true test. It was not worth it to fight to the death with a mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect now. At that thought, Su Zimo was prepared to leave and avoid the attack temporarily. What are you doing? When the Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect saw that Su Zimo was about to leave, they shouted one after another in a fierce manner. A mighty figure of our sect is about to arrive. Are you trying to escape? Who dares to stop me if I want to leave? Su Zimo swept his gaze and said coldly. Although more than 10 Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect surrounded Su Zimo, none of them dared to step forward, let alone stop him. Over the years, Desolate Martial's reputation had been way too great. It was said that Desolate Martial had already condensed a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 80 feet tall at the Void Reversion realm. Up till this point of their cultivation, the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords had yet to condense heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that were 80 feet tall. Tao Lord Sunset Cloud, the only one who had cultivated a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 84 feet tall, was killed by Desolate Martial before he could even release his Dharma characteristic. Later on, it was said that when Desolate Martial entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he cultivated 2 85 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. None of them dared to fight against such terrifying combat strength. Where is Desolate Martial? Right then, a holler sounded from afar with endless rage and killing intent. It's Elder Lei Lai. The Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect were delighted. Su Zimo no longer hesitated and sped into the distance. Elder Lei Lai has arrived. Let's see where else you can escape to. When the Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect heard that a conjoint body mighty figure of their sect had arrived, they became even bolder and shifted horizontally, blocking Su Zimo's path. To them, Elder Lei Lai had already rushed over and Su Zimo would definitely not dare to be entangled with them out of cowardice. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo's expression turned cold when he saw that the Dharma characteristic Tao Lords did not know what was good for them and even dared to attack him. He closed his fingers and gathered the heaven-slaying sword art, releasing more than 10 sword chi in succession. After cultivating for close to 5,000 years in the Tao inheritance ground, Su Zimo's comprehension of the heaven-slaying sword art was no longer comparable to before. The fact that Tao Lord Hatred could receive the heaven-slaying sword chi with his terrifying combat strength did not mean that other Dharma characteristic Tao Lords could as well. Bang! 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 Sensing danger, those Dharma characteristic Tao Lords released their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics right away. Dharma characteristics that were more than 70 feet tall rose one after another, emitting powerful auras with immense might. However, the heaven-slaying sword chi descended the moment those heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were formed. Chi! 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 Sword chi struck the heaven and earth Dharma characteristics one after another. In front of everyone, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were sliced into two by the white sword chi and dissipated instantly. Even heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that were more than 70 feet tall could not stop the heaven-slaying sword chi. What was even more terrifying was that after destroying the heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, the heaven-slaying sword chi still had remnant might and slashed at some of Chaos Essence sect's Tao Lords. Some Dharma characteristic Tao Lords could not dodge in time and were cut into two on the spot by the heaven-slaying sword chi. The sharpness of the heaven-slaying sword chi surged into their bodies and destroyed the life force within instantly. Even their consciousnesses were sliced into pieces and their essence spirits were destroyed. Some of the Chaos Essence sect Tao Lords were decisive and abandoned their physical bodies right away, escaping into the distance with their essence spirits. That was the only way they survived. All the cultivators gasped when they saw that. It was too tragic. None of those Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect were nobodies in the cultivation world. Otherwise, they would not have dared to come to the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Unfortunately, those Tao Lords of Chaos Essence sect were killed on the spot by the sword chi released by Su Zimo's fingertip. There were always various rumors about Desolate Martial in the cultivation world. They spoke of his strong physique and how he was invincible within the same cultivation realm. Many cultivators were skeptical about those rumors. It was only now that the cultivators witnessed this scene that they truly understood how terrifying Su Zimo was. On the other side, a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord of Sword sect with a long sword on his back had a grim expression. He crushed a messenger talisman right away and summoned a mighty figure of the sect as well. It was Tao Lord Purple Sword, 9th on the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. That is one of the 3 ancient sword arts, the heaven-slaying sword art. You guys won't be able to defend against it, Tao Lord Purple Sword declared. During the battle at the Tao Inheritance Ground, many cultivators knew that Su Zimo had cultivated an extremely powerful sword technique. However, not many people knew the origin of that sword technique. Naturally, the sword sect cultivators knew about it. The reason why sword sect could be established was naturally thanks to the Sword Emperor. However, the reason why the Sword Emperor was so famous in the past was because he cultivated one of the 3 ancient sword arts. The lifeless sword art of sword sect was also deduced from that sword art. Desolate Martial, how dare you injure Chaos Essence sect cultivators? Right then, Elder Lei Lai of Chaos Essence sect arrived with an enraged beard and endless killing intent in his eyes. He attacked all of a sudden. A tremendous pressure descended. This was the might of the conjoint body realm. Instantly, heaven and earth shook. Glancing at Elder Lei Lai, Su Zimo smirked and sneered internally. Electric arcs burst forth from his body and a pair of Dharmic power wings grew from his back. Thereafter, Su Zimo vanished from the spot and turned into a golden streak of light, crossing thousands of kilometers in an instant at an extremely fast speed. Although Elder Lei Lai was strong, he missed and Su Zimo had already escaped far away. In that instant, Su Zimo released 3 movement technique secret skills in succession. Apart from lightning escape and ethereal wings, there was also an escape technique he had comprehended in the Tao Inheritance Ground known as Boundless Golden Light. The speed of the 3 secret skills was not inferior to blood escape when they were released at the same time. Even conjoint body mighty figures could not catch up to him. Elder Lei Lai missed his attack and chased after Su Zimo without hesitation, wanting to kill the latter. However, no matter how he channeled his blood chi, released his secret skills and escape techniques, he could not shorten the distance between him and Su Zimo. Chapter 1259, 4 Vajras. Chapter 1259, 4 Vajras. Ha 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 ha. So, the renowned Tao Lord Desolate Martial is actually a cowardly rat. When Elder Lei Lai saw that he could not catch up to Su Zimo, he deliberately roared in laughter to anger the latter. Su Zimo's expression did not change and he merely glanced at Elder Lei Lai indifferently without any interest in retorting. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was about to open up and he had no intention of fighting against conjoint body mighty figures outside for the time being. Furthermore, he could clearly sense that more than one conjoint body mighty figure was gathering towards him. Chaos Essence sect was not the only one targeting him. Sects like Zephyr Thunder Palace and Sword sect wanted to kill him as well and steal his cultivation techniques and secret skills. The Middle Continent was unlike the North region. In the North region, the factions were still afraid of the Patriarch in his twilight years beneath the Dragon Burial Valley. However, this was the Middle Continent. Mahayana patriarchs were not omniscient and omnipotent. The person from Dragon Burial Valley was already in his twilight years and had limited energy. It was impossible for him to know beforehand what danger Su Zimo would face. Even if he knew, it would be too late. That was the reason why Elder Lei Lai dared to attack Su Zimo. Desolate Martial, how heroic are you to establish the martial Tao and impart martial arts to all living beings? Aren't you ashamed now that you're fleeing like a rat? Elder Lei Lai was still unwilling to give up and shouted from behind. Many cultivators rolled their eyes. As a conjoint body mighty figure, he disregarded his status to chase after a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord and wanted the latter to stop. Yet, he was talking to the latter about shame? In their eyes, Elder Lei Lai was like an exasperated idiot who had lost his mind. There was no hint of the demeanor of a mighty figure at all. Boom! Right then, a rumble sounded from the direction of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. The Dharmic power barrier that was initially surrounding the ancient temple gradually disappeared, attracting the attention of countless cultivators. Even Elder Lei Lai paused in his tracks and turned back. The Grand Primordium Ancient Temple had opened. Nobody wanted to be left behind when the ancient temple opened. If they could enter the ancient temple first, they might gain the advantage. Elder Lei Lai was indignant, but he could only give up on his pursuit of Su Zimo for the time being. Right now, the most important thing was to enter the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple first. Frustrated, he turned around to look only to discover that Su Zimo had already made a move before him, transforming into a golden beam of light that sped towards the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Fellow Taoist Lei Lai, let's go too. Right then, the mighty figure of Sword Sect arrived beside Lei Lai. He had sneaked over earlier on to kill Desolate Marshal. Unfortunately, Desolate Marshal seemed to have sensed danger beforehand and managed to avoid his ambush each time. The mighty figure of Sword Sect said, "There's a higher chance of killing that lad inside the ancient temple." That's right. Elder Lei Lai nodded. The two of them exchanged glances and moved at the same time, heading towards the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. At that moment, in Jade Toad Ridge, the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple was like a gigantic creature with a gaping mouth as cultivators from all directions swarmed in. Initially, there were only slightly more than 2,000 cultivators that appeared near the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. However, after the opening of the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, many cultivators hiding in the surroundings appeared one after another and charged into the ancient temple, wanting to fight for their own opportunities. A single Grand Primordium Ancient Temple had attracted more than 5,000 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords. It was clear how flourishing the cultivation civilization of the Middle Continent was. There were 4 entrances to the ancient temple that corresponded to the 4 directions. Su Zimo entered through the north gate. When he arrived before the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple, he could sense its grandeur even clearer. The walls of the ancient temple were made from a gigantic rock without any connecting gaps. It was a work of the gods. Su Zimo entered the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple with the crowd warily. Upon entering the ancient temple, his vision cleared up. The ancient temple was like a small world of its own within that was extremely spacious. A row of green lanterns were placed beneath the 4 walls of the ancient temple. There was no oil inside and they were all extinguished. There were many portraits drawn on the 4 walls, as though they were legends of the Buddhist monasteries. Of course, the most striking things on the 4 walls were the 4 enraged Vajras in the middle. Their bodies were massive and they were 90 feet tall. Standing upright, their eyes were widened and their eyeballs protruded with a terrifying might. Legend has it that the Buddhist monasteries had 4 great guardian Vajras. Known as the 4 heavenly kings of the Buddhist monasteries, they were the Country Pillar Heavenly King, Growth Heavenly King, Boundless Vision Heavenly King and Infinite Hearing Heavenly King. The portraits on the 4 walls were clearly from that legend of the Buddhist monasteries. The 4 Vajras widened their eyes in rage. Although they were only paintings, they exuded endless might. All the cultivators exchanged glances and were shocked, lowering their heads instinctively. Not to mention Dharma characteristic Tao Lords, even many conjoint body mighty figures had weaker auras against the furious gazes of the 4 Vajras. Su Zimo felt even stranger. His spirit perception had been warning him the moment he stepped foot into the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. However, in the ancient temple, that warning no longer had much meaning. That was because Su Zimo could not tell where the danger came from. It might have originated from the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. It could also be from other cultivators. The strangest thing was that Su Zimo felt like he was being spied on the moment he entered the ancient temple. However, he could not tell where the spying sensation came from within the chaotic crowd. Or rather, it seemed like it came from all directions. There's indeed something evil about this ancient temple. Su Zimo frowned and murmured. Many cultivators had already dispersed. Some of them sped towards the ancient temple in search of other hidden routes in space. Some of them came beneath the walls and looked at the many Buddha statues on the walls, wanting to discover some secret from them. Some of them came before a stone pillar that could fit 10 people and started circling it. Some cultivators even ran to the green lanterns and examined them carefully, wanting to determine if they were powerful treasures. Su Zimo stood on the spot motionlessly. All of a sudden. Boom! Suddenly, a gigantic stone door descended from above the 4 entrances of the Grand Primordium ancient temple and sealed them tightly. Instantly, the entire hall fell into darkness. Everyone present were Dharma characteristic Tao lords. Although they could still see their surroundings clearly in the darkness, the sudden change caused quite a stir. What's going on? What happened? Which one of them triggered a trap by accident? The hall was in a mess. Swoosh! Right then, the green lanterns beneath the walls suddenly lit up. They burned with flames that flickered. Under the dim lights, the 4 Vajras looked extremely menacing, as though they were suddenly alive. Many cultivators were shocked. A series of exclamations sounded from the crowd. Even with Su Zimo's temperament, his expression changed drastically as he gasped and felt chills run down his spine. Chapter 1260, Elixir located. Chapter 1260, Elixir located. However, before long, many cultivators realized that it was only because of the dim lights that caused the shadows of the 4 Buddhist Vajras to stretch and form the effect. The initially restless crowd gradually calmed down. Right from the beginning, Su Zimo had been silent with a grim expression. After that shock, many cultivators even forgot that the 4 entrances to the Grand Primordium ancient temple had been completely sealed. The group of them, be it Dharma characteristic Tao lords or conjoint body mighty figures, were trapped in the ancient temple. Right then, a cultivator realized this and observed the entrances of the Grand Primordium ancient temple, shouting, "Everyone, take a look. The entrances are completely sealed. What are you afraid of?" Another person did not mind at all. There are so many Tao lords and mighty figures among us. At most, we'll join forces to break through this stone door. Could this ancient temple still trap us here? Boom! On the other side, a loud bang sounded. It was an attack from a conjoint body mighty figure that was attempting to break through the gate. Bang! 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 The conjoint body mighty figure attacked the stone door consecutively and released a powerful and ferocious power. However, the stone door did not budge at all. Against the stone door, the power of the conjoint body mighty figure was like a rock that was cast into the sea, vanishing without a trace. There's no way out of this ancient temple. The conjoint body mighty figure had a terrible expression. Even if all the conjoint body mighty figures here join forces, we won't be able to shatter this stone door. Suddenly, another situation occurred. Bang! Boom! Boom! A series of violent explosions sounded from the depths of the ancient temple. Many cultivators felt that they could not steady themselves and leaped into the air hurriedly. Even so, the void where the cultivators could see was still distorted. Even if they released their spirit consciousnesses, they would not be able to see far beyond the shattered distortion. Immediately after, all the cultivators felt as though they were drawn in by a strange power. The world spun as they passed through the voids and arrived in another space. Su Zimo had the same experience and feelings. It was an indescribable feeling that was both familiar and strange. He could not resist the attraction. In a daze, many cultivators focused their gazes and were shocked to discover that they had already left the main hall of the Grand Primordium ancient temple and arrived in another secret chamber. The secret chamber was completely sealed without any gaps and tough walls were everywhere. Of course, although it was a secret chamber, its size was unimaginable and resembled a gigantic palace. Su Zimo surveyed his surroundings. Initially, there were more than 5,000 of them in the main hall of the ancient temple. At that moment, there were only slightly more than 500 people in this secret chamber with him. It was as though the group of cultivators had been forcefully separated. It must be the same for the other cultivators apart from the 500-odd people in this secret chamber. They must have been separated into their own individual secret chambers. How could this be? Could we have triggered some trap or formation? Su Zimo frowned in thought. Normally speaking, the most likely reason for such a phenomenon to happen in the Grand Primordium ancient temple was because of a trap formation. However, he surveyed his surroundings for a long time and could not find any signs of any formation patterns or traps. A connate Dharmic weapon. Right then, a cultivator picked up an ancient mirror on a table in the secret chamber and examined it carefully before exclaiming. Although the ancient mirror looked unassuming, after wiping away the dust on it, one could clearly see that there were 6 Dharmic patterns etched on the surface of the ancient mirror. That voice attracted the attention of many cultivators. Initially, the 500-odd cultivators trapped in the secret chamber were still worried about how they were going to get out. However, at that moment, many cultivators dispersed and searched the secret chamber, wanting to discover more treasures. Perfect Bone Corrosion Sword. A sword sect cultivator picked up a secret manual and was delighted when he opened it. The reason why he came this time round was because he wanted to find an ancient sword art. This Perfect Bone Corrosion Sword was lost in the ancient era and was extremely powerful. To think that it would be found in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Before long, cultivators found what they wanted. The number of treasures in this secret chamber was unimaginable. Su Zimo could only suppress his curiosity for the time being. He sniffed gently and headed in a direction. His 5 senses were sharp, and if there were any elixirs, he could smell them right away. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo arrived beside an elixir furnace. There were many spirit medicine shelves beside the cauldron with rows of spirit herbs that emitted a rich medicinal fragrance. Some cultivators who had arrived earlier were grabbing wildly. In fact, some of the cultivators were already fighting. Su Zimo did not move and merely lingered around the elixir furnace. Thereafter, his gaze gradually froze. Squatting down, he peeled away the ashes beneath the elixir furnace and revealed half a jade bottle. Su Zimo took the jade bottle over and opened the bottle stopper as his eyes lit up with a glint. There were 2 9 Revolutions Soul Return elixirs within. The 9 Revolutions Soul Return elixirs were not placed on the shelves but buried in the ashes. With the 9 Revolutions Soul Return elixirs, his purpose for this trip was halved. What Su Zimo had to do next was to search for the Buddha beads and return alive. All of a sudden, his expression changed, as though he sensed something. Without even turning back, he swung his arm and flung it behind him. At the same time, a figure appeared behind him and stabbed towards him with a sword. Piak! Su Zimo's palm collided with the sword and did a coil, tremble and yank. He snatched the sword over. Without even looking at it, Su Zimo threw the sword in reverse. Poof! A flash of blood appeared. The sword pierced the cultivator's chest. However, that person's body shifted slightly and avoided fatal damage. Su Zimo closed 2 fingers and slashed gently at the person. He seized the sword and counterattacked, releasing sword chi. The series of counterattacks were fluid as water without any pauses at all. Chi. No matter how the Dharma characteristic Tao Lord struggled, he could not dodge the heaven-slaying sword Chi. The Dharma characteristic Tao Lord was sliced into 2 by his own flying sword and his essence spirit was destroyed on the spot. Without even looking, Su Zimo already knew that this was a Dharma characteristic of the Fiend sect's Hidden Death sect. Apart from Hidden Death sect, no other sect would be able to sneak behind him stealthily and at such a close distance. He had just obtained the 9 Revolutions Soul Return elixirs and did not expect to attract killing intent so quickly. Desolate Marshal, hand over the 9 Revolutions Soul Return elixirs. A conjoined body mighty figure strode toward Su Zimo with a burning gaze and immense might. How dare you covet something of mine? You must have a death wish. Su Zimo's gaze turned cold. This conjoined body mighty figure had no sect or faction. Unless he had any powerful trump cards, it would be extremely easy for Su Zimo to kill him without even using his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. When this conjoined body mighty figure saw Su Zimo being chased by Lei Lai outside the ancient temple, he thought that Desolate Marshal was nothing much and thus wanted to fight for the 9 Revolutions soul return elixirs. However, what he did not know was that was outside the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Everything was unknown. The 9 Revolutions soul return elixirs and Buddha Bead had not appeared yet. There was naturally no way Su Zimo was going to fight Lei Lai. But now, even if he was up against Lei Lai, he would not retreat. Chapter 1261, Rivers of Blood. Chapter 1261, Rivers of Blood. Boom! Without a second word, the conjoined body mighty figure arrived before Su Zimo and threw out a punch, releasing a terrifying heaven and earth power. The air in the secret chamber turned scorching and suffocating. At the conjoined body realm, one would fuse their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics into their bodies. With every single move, he could release the might of heaven and earth. Humans could only truly break free from the foundation of their weak bodies at the conjoined body realm and could fight against many ferocious beasts in melee combat. If a severed arm could be regrown, one could imagine how immense the life force possessed by a conjoined body mighty figure was. The entire void trembled with that punch. Great Sanskrit light fist. Su Zimo's gaze intensified and he did not dodge or avoid. Channeling his essence spirit, he conjured hand seals and struck the incoming conjoined body mighty figure. That single punch was like a blazing sun that shone with endless light, illuminating the entire secret chamber like daylight. The light possessed a divine and flawless power that seemed like it could cleanse everything. Boom! The fists collided with a deafening bang. The cultivators were shocked and they saw that. They had witnessed Su Zimo attack outside the Grand Primordium ancient temple before. It was decisive, sharp and powerful. However, none of them expected that the power that Su Zimo displayed right now was even more terrifying than they had imagined. He could fight against conjoined body mighty figures without using his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. Even conjoined body mighty figures had differences in strength. If he was up against mighty figures of super sects such as Elder Lei Lai, Su Zimo could only fight them by summoning his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. However, the conjoined body mighty figure before him was far from that. The conjoined body mighty figure was stunned by Su Zimo's punch. He had not expected that the power of his punch would not be able to repel a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord, let alone kill him. Slapping his storage bag with his left hand, Su Zimo conjured a sword art with his right hand and slashed gently at the mighty figure. Chi! The heaven-slaying sword Chi burst forth. The heaven-slaying sword Chi was way too terrifying and its killing power could even cause the stars in the skies to turn chaotic and alter their trajectories. If it was any ordinary Dharmic art, a conjoined body mighty figure could shatter it with his bare hands. He could break all Dharmic arts with brute force. However, in the face of the heaven-slaying sword Chi, the mighty figure felt his scalp tingle and his hairs stood on end. He could not take it head-on with his body. Go! Without hesitation, the mighty figure made a prompt decision and summoned his destiny flying sword right away. He wanted to use his destiny flying sword to defend against the heaven-slaying sword Chi. However, Su Zimo had predicted it and was faster than him. He had already thrown the mystic magnet mountain out of his storage bag with his left hand. The mystic magnet mountain that was a few thousand feet tall descended with a large shadow. It had a terrifying aura and arrived almost at the same time as the heaven-slaying sword Chi. The moment the destiny-flying sword of this mighty figure was summoned, its trajectory was drawn away by the powerful magnetic force released by the mystic magnet mountain. The conjoined body mighty figure's expression changed starkly. His destiny-flying sword was sucked over by the mystic magnet mountain. At the same time, the heaven-slaying sword Chi slashed down. It was too late for the mighty figure to change tactics or conjure a Dharmic art. He had completely lost the initiative. In that moment of life and death, the mighty figure struggled to turn his body and raise his arms to defend against the heaven-slaying sword Chi. Blood gushed out. Almost without any resistance, the arm of the mighty figure was severed by the heaven-slaying sword Qi and fell with fresh blood flowing. This mighty figure was a ruthless character as well. Even after losing an arm, he did not make a sound. Gritting his teeth, he glared at Su Zimo fiercely and retreated, wanting to distance himself from the latter. However, before he could take 2 steps, he grunted and blood drained from his face as his body swayed. Under normal circumstances, a conjoint body mighty figure could regrow their severed arm in the blink of an eye. However, at that moment, the mighty figure discovered to his shock that blood did not even stop flowing from his broken arm, let alone grow a new one. Furthermore, the remnant sword Qi around the wound was still tearing his wounds apart and destroying his life force. That was the terror of the heaven-slaying sword Qi. The 3 ancient sword arts destroyed life and one could not even regrow their limbs. Ah! Finally, the mighty figure could not help but let out a tragic cry. His blood Qi was severely depleted and he staggered, almost falling. Right then, his vision darkened as though a huge shadow had enveloped him. Boom! The mystic magnet mountain descended and suppressed the mighty figure beneath it. The blood Qi of this mighty figure was almost destroyed by the heaven-slaying sword Qi and could not withstand the pressure of the mystic magnet mountain at all. A mighty figure that was almost at the peak of the cultivation world was crushed into a meat sludge without a corpse or spirit before he could even say anything. The cultivators were moved. It was too tragic. To cultivate to the conjoint body realm and become a mighty figure, one had to experience countless dangers, opportunities, and encounters. Unfortunately, the tragic outcome of dying in a single battle was truly sorrowful. The path of cultivation was one that defied the heavens and was filled with danger, that was no exaggeration. After this battle, no one else in the secret chamber dared to challenge Su Zimo. Although there were still a few other conjoint body mighty figures, none of them dared to act rashly. An angry argument sounded from the other side of the secret chamber. Great Essence Creation Elixir. Hand it over. I'll definitely get my hands on that elixir. Let's see who dares to fight with me. Immediately, another Dharma characteristic Tao Lord from a super sect stood out. The Great Essence Creation Elixir was also an ancient elixir. It was said that a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord could achieve a minor realm breakthrough just by consuming it. That was definitely a creation that stole from heaven and earth. Although he had a nagging feeling that something was amiss, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat when he heard the name of the Great Essence Creation Elixir. Bang! 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 In order to fight for the Great Essence Creation Elixir, the 100 Dharma characteristic Tao Lords had already begun fighting. Many Dharmic arts collided and a series of sounds could be heard. Right then, the few conjoint body mighty figures in the secret chamber faced off because of an ancient cultivation technique. The reason why I'm here is for this torn section. This is an incomplete copy of my Purple Sun sect that has been lost for many years. Fellow Taoists, please give me some face. My sect will definitely reward you immensely after we leave this place. Purple Sun sect was one of the upper sects of the Middle Continent. A mighty figure of Purple Sun sect cupped his fists with a hint of pleading in his tone. Ha! A mighty figure sneered, it's easy for you to say that. The treasures in this ancient temple have no owner and you claim that it belongs to Purple Sun sect? That's right. Another mighty figure nodded. If you want a treasure, you've got to fight for it. None of the cultivators who had arrived at the Grand Primordium ancient temple wanted to return empty-handed. The mighty figures did not say much before they began fighting as well. Within the secret chamber, cultivators discovered treasures one after another and battles broke out continuously. It was a mess. Su Zimo was the only one who could truly stay out of things. Those cultivators were still rational and none of them dared to provoke him recklessly. As time passed by, more and more cultivators died in that secret chamber with corpses strewn everywhere and grisly blood staining the ground. Chapter 1262, Against Mighty Figures. Chapter 1262, Against Mighty Figures. Time flowed on. The massacre in the secret chamber did not show any signs of stopping. Alongside the birth of many treasures, more and more cultivators went into a frenzy and even lost their minds. Their eyes were completely bloodshot. Initially, there were more than 500 cultivators in this secret chamber. After half an hour, there was only half left. As time passed by, the number of cultivators in the secret chamber decreased rapidly. Even Su Zimo had an urge to kill all the cultivators in the secret chamber and collect all the treasures when he smelled the blood stench. However, he could still retain a trace of rationality. The current situation was unusual. Or rather, the entire process had been extremely strange ever since they entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Su Zimo had a nagging feeling that he had neglected something, and his essence spirit in his consciousness began to chant Buddhist sutras to try its best to maintain its clarity. Boom! Right then, a loud bang sounded from one of the walls of the secret chamber as cracks appeared and spread continuously. Boom! With a loud bang, the wall collapsed and dust billowed. On the other side of the wall, a group of cultivators were fighting for treasures as well. Upon hearing the sound of the wall collapsing, the cultivators on both sides paused for a moment and looked opposite. Desolate Marshal. Right then, a furious roar sounded from the other side of the wall. Enemies truly often crossed one another's paths. Who would have thought that the walls of the secret chamber would suddenly shatter, and on the other side was Elder Lei Lai of Chaos Essence Sect. Elder Lei Lai's clothes were stained with quite a bit of blood as well. Clearly, he had just gone through a huge battle and was filled with killing intent as he strode over. On Elder Lei Lai's left, another conjoint body mighty figure flew through the air. He was like an unsheathed sword and glared at Su Zimo with an unfriendly expression. A mighty figure of Sword Sect. On Elder Lei Lai's right, a mighty figure rode on lightning and tore through the air with an electric gaze and a murderous aura. A mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace. 3 mighty figures of super sects were here. Conjoint body mighty figures of super sects had terrifying combat strength that far surpassed ordinary mighty figures. Right now, Su Zimo was only at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. Apart from a minor realm, there was another major realm between him and these conjoint body mighty figures. He could suppress ordinary conjoint body mighty figures. However, he did not know if he could win against the mighty figures of the super sects. Desolate Marshal, let's see where else you can escape to this time round. Elder Lei Lai sneered. Escape? Su Zimo sneered as well. You think you can kill me with just the 3 of you? If he was at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm, he would not have the confidence to fight against 3 conjoint body mighty figures of super sects head-on. But now, he was at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm and his combat strength had increased exponentially. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics had already grown to a height of 87 feet. Great Chaos Essence Palm. Elder Lei Lai hollered and arrived before Su Zimo instantly. He reached out with his palm and crushed down on Su Zimo like a gigantic millstone. That was Chaos Essence Sect's strongest secret skill. Back then, Dean could sweep through anyone of the same cultivation realm with his Great Chaos Essence Palm. Elder Lei Lai's Great Chaos Essence Palm was clearly much stronger than Yin's. The power of the universe was truly condensed in his palm. When the palm landed, Su Zimo felt that he was not fighting against humans, but against the entire world and could be destroyed at any moment. Startling sword. The mighty figure of Sword Sect slashed with his sword. A bedazzling sword beam descended like a bolt of lightning that could not be avoided. Although Sword Sect had many sword inheritances, the strongest were the lifeless Sword Dao and startling Sword Dao. Without using any secret skills or Dharmic arts, the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace released his blood chi right away. Wielding a gigantic hammer that shone with electric arcs, he smashed down toward Su Zimo's head. 3 mighty figures attacked at the same time. A terrifying power surged like a tsunami, suffocating. Too strong. Those 3 mighty figures were more than a single level stronger than the conjoint body mighty figures who had just died in Su Zimo's hands. Under that pressure, Su Zimo roared into the skies and 3 figures appeared within his body instantly, climbing rapidly. In the blink of an eye, they were 80 feet tall. There was no pause after 80 feet, and they grew to a height of 87 feet before long. A heaven and earth Dharma characteristic. The crowd was shocked. Even some of the cultivators who were initially fighting stopped temporarily and looked over with dumbfounded expressions. Impossible. Desolate Marshal doesn't just have 2 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, he has 3. It's way too terrifying for a mid-stage Dharma characteristic to condense 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics that are 87 feet tall. Who is a match for Desolate Marshal at the same cultivation realm? Normally speaking, anyone that could cultivate a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that was 87 feet tall could be considered as a heaven-defying monster incarnate. The way Su Zimo released 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics right away was beyond the knowledge of many cultivators. Even Elder Lei Lai and the other 2 were shocked. The Thunder Dharmic body wielded a whip and whipped the incoming Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace. The whip shone with the power of thunder and crackled in midair. Carrying a destructive aura, it moved unusually and coiled towards the arm of the Zephyr Thunder Palace Elder. The Elder of Zephyr Thunder Palace wielded his gigantic hammer. Among Dharmic weapons, axes and hammers were the most ferocious. However, the whip of the Thunder Dharmic body was extremely flexible and could counter the gigantic hammer of the Zephyr Thunder Palace Elder. Piak. The whip did not clash head-on with the gigantic hammer at all. Instead, it coiled a few times around Elder Zephyr Thunder's arm like a spirit snake and burst forth with immense power of thunder. Ugh! The mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace grunted dully and felt a sharp pain in his arm as though it was pricked by needles. A look of shock flashed through his eyes. This was the impact he had now that he was at the conjoint body realm. He truly could not imagine what would happen to the arm of a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord if it was wrapped by that whip. That entire arm would most likely be destroyed right away. On the other side, against Elder Lei Lai's great chaos essence palm, the Rulai Dharmic body lowered its head with a dignified expression. It chanted mysterious sutras and extended its palm as well. The palm of the Rulai Dharmic body shone with a blinding golden light as though it was covered by a layer of gold foil and collided against the great chaos essence palm. The 2 palms collided. The Rulai Dharmic body trembled slightly but did not move at all. Su Zimo was as steady as a rock as well as he conjured the foundation seal secretly to negate the impact and remnant power of the great chaos essence palm. As for the heavenly fiend Dharma body, it was up against the mighty figure of Sword Sect. The startling sword was indeed extremely startling. However, the sword beams sank into the rumbling pitch-black fiend chi and slowed down. It was no longer startling and was shattered by the heavenly fiend scythe. The first attack of the conjoint body mighty figures of 3 super sects was negated by Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. At that moment, Su Zimo was standing in the middle. 3 87 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics protected him like ancient titans. They waved their arms and fought against 3 mighty figures. Right then, it seemed as though Su Zimo possessed 3 heads and 6 arms. Chapter 1263, Might of the Tao Fire. Chapter 1263, Might of the Tao Fire. Firmament. Imperial Sky Divine Sword. Zephyr Thunder Strike. The 3 conjoint body mighty figures of Chaos Essence Sect, Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace attacked at the same time and released the top Dharmic arts of their sects. The Dharmic powers of conjoint body mighty figures were absolutely boundless. Even the most ordinary Dharmic arts released by conjoint body mighty figures would release terrifying lethality, let alone top-grade Dharmic arts like this. Su Zimo's gaze intensified and he had a fearless expression. Controlling the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics with his spirit consciousness, he waved his 6 arms and fought against the 3 mighty figures. Bang! 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 A deafening sound could be heard with each collision. Elder Lei Lai and the other 2 were from super sects and cultivated top-tier cultivation techniques and secret skills. Every single move they made could shatter mountains and sever rivers. This was the true power of the conjoint body realm. Their bodies seemed to have fused with the world and were unshakable. Even though Su Zimo's heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were like ancient titans, they could only barely match the three mighty figures. With each clash, the three heaven and earth Dharma characteristics shuddered. I'm still inferior compared to these conjoint body mighty figures of super sects. Su Zimo thought to himself. If his heaven and earth Dharma characteristics could grow to a height of 89 feet or 90 feet, he would be able to suppress these conjoint body mighty figures. Su Zimo did not know that although Elder Lei Lai and the other two had the upper hand at the moment, the shock in their hearts had already reached an extreme. The three of them were mighty figures from super sects. Given their combat strength, it was nothing difficult for them to suppress 100 mighty figures of the same cultivation realm single-handedly. But now, a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord could fight against three of them single-handedly. Furthermore, although they had the upper hand, it was difficult for them to shatter the three heaven and earth Dharma characteristics no matter how they channeled their Dharmic arts or released their trump cards. The three heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were more corporeal than any other heaven and earth Dharma characteristic they had seen before. It's truly hard to imagine how Desolate Marshal managed to cultivate to this point. That thought flashed through Elder Lei Lai's mind. Prior to this, they had also heard some news regarding Su Zimo, the number one of the phenomenon ranking, the Tao inheritance ground where he killed many titular disciples and the establishment of the Tao by Desolate Marshal. However, in the depths of their hearts, they did not truly view Su Zimo as a great enemy. They were conjoint body mighty figures. Even if Su Zimo had entered the Dharma characteristic realm, he was a major cultivation realm away from them. This was an insurmountable chasm. At that moment, Elder Lei Lai and the other two truly realized how terrifying Su Zimo was. Although Tao Lord Desolate Marshal was only at the Dharma characteristic realm, he could already fight against experts like them. Once Desolate Marshal entered the conjoint body realm, wouldn't Tianhuang mainland be overwhelmed? Elder Lei Lai finally understood something. The sect's half-martial ancestor Di Fan disregarded his status and attempted to kill Tao Lord Desolate Marshal who was still at the Void Reversion realm. It was not only because his clansman, Di Yin, was killed. Another important reason was that Di Fan could sense Desolate Marshal's terrifying potential. Kill. He had to seize this opportunity to kill Desolate Marshal here. Kill. Almost at the same time, three conjoint body mighty figures channeled their blood chi and Dharmic powers to their limits to suppress Su Zimo. As long as they could break through the defense of the three heaven and earth Dharma characteristics, they could close in and kill Desolate Marshal completely with their bodies and bloodlines as conjoint body mighty figures. Although the Green Lotus true body was tough, it could not defend against the body of a mighty figure. Avicii. Sandstorm. Purple thunderstorm. Under the protection of three Dharma characteristic Tao Lords, Su Zimo changed hand seals repeatedly and released more than 30 Dharmic arts in one go. Instantly, the Dharmic powers in the hall surged. Bang! 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 Elder Lei Lai and the other two were shocked. They had not expected Su Zimo's counterattack to be so ferocious. They could not even steady themselves against the impact of more than 30 Dharmic arts, let alone close in. They could not help but retreat continuously. So many Dharmic arts. Some cultivators were secretly shocked and they saw that. Any one of those Dharmic arts was enough for countless Tao Lords to fight for it. To think that Su Zimo would release more than 30 in one go. What sort of strength was that? Three conjoint body mighty figures were forced back by Su Zimo. However, that was not the end of his counterattack. Swoosh! Suddenly, three balls of flames appeared beside Su Zimo. Scarlet, Immortal Tao Fire. Golden, Buddhist Tao Fire. Black, Fiend Tao Fire. The three balls of flames appeared and the temperature in the hall rose. Su Zimo channeled his essence spirit and the three balls of flames converged rapidly. The Samadhi Tao fire descended. Many cultivators retreated. Some cultivators were initially fighting on the other side. The moment their Dharmic arts were formed, they were burned by the heat released by the Samadhi Dao fire. Go! Su Zimo hollered and directed the Samadhi Dao fire towards Elder Lei Lai. How dare you embarrass yourself with such a puny flame? Elder Lei Lai sneered and reached out, wanting to crush the ball of flames. I'll take your life with that puny flame. Before his sentence was finished, an essence spirit flame burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella and entered the Samadhi Dao fire instantly. The power of the Dao fire exploded. The Kacharati Dao fire. The increase in power was not 10% or 20%, but twice. The Samadhi Dao fire was truly of no threat to Elder Lei Lai and the others. They could extinguish the Samadhi Dao fire with a casual punch. However, the might of the Kacharati Dao fire was something that even the body of a conjoint body mighty figure could not withstand. This is bad. We've been tricked. Elder Lei Lai's expression changed. Su Zimo's fourth essence spirit fire was only released when Elder Lei Lai was about to grab the Samadhi Dao fire in his hands. At that moment it was already too late for Elder Lei Lai to stop. Swoosh! The ball of flames exploded in Elder Lei Lai's palm instantly, releasing a terrifying, fiery power. The flesh on Elder Lei Lai's palm sizzled from the heat and white bones were even revealed. It was a shocking sight. Ah! Elder Lei Lai's face was pale as he let out a tragic cry. The Kacharati Dao fire burned at an extremely fast speed and extended down his palm towards his entire arm. His sleeves turned into ashes instantly. His entire arm was shrouded by the Kacharati Dao fire. Swoosh! Elder Lei Lai channeled his blood chi fanatically, wanting to suppress the Kacharati Dao fire on his arm. However, his bloodline had yet to reach the tsunami blood realm. When it collided with the Kacharati Dao fire, it sizzled and was in a stalemate. This stalemate was an even greater torture for Elder Lei Lai. Half of his arm was still burned by the Kacharati Dao fire and the flesh on it had already been burned into ashes, leaving only white bones behind. The physique of a mighty figure was indeed terrifying. Even with the might of the Kacharati Dao fire, it could only incinerate Elder Lei Lai's flesh, but it could not burn his bones to ashes. A vicious glint flashed through Elder Lei Lai's eyes. He flipped his hand and withdrew a cold saber, prepared to sever his arm to resolve the pain. Chapter 1264, Victory. Chapter 1264, Victory. A conjoint body mighty figure could regrow a severed arm as well. Although he would lose a lot of blood chi, it was much better than being burned by the Kacharati Dao fire and enduring the torture continuously. Watch out! Unexpectedly, two hurried yells sounded in his ears. It was a reminder from the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace not far away. Immediately after, a strong sense of danger surged into his heart. A white sword chi slashed down with endless killing intent, as though it wanted to slice the void into two. Boom! The Rulai Dharmic body strode forward and extended a gigantic golden palm that carried the might of the world, crushing down on Elder Lei Lai. Such guts! Elder Lei Lai was enraged. Desolate Marshal, you wish to kill me? After he was injured by the Kacharati Dao fire, most of his attention was on how he should destroy it. That gave Su Zimo the advantage to initiate. As for the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace, they were blocked by the Heavenly Fiend Dharma body and Thunder Dharmic body and could not render assistance. The situation of the three of them surrounding Su Zimo had suddenly turned into a one-on-one fight between Elder Lei Lai and Su Zimo. This was a form of control over the situation. There were not many people who could compare to Su Zimo in this aspect. Great Chaos Essence Palm. Elder Lei Lai raised his intact left arm and released his sect's secret skill, colliding heavily against the golden palm above his head. At the same time, he raised his right arm that was burned by the Kacharati Dao fire and blocked in front of the heaven-slaying sword chi. The heaven-slaying sword chi severed Elder Lei Lai's right arm. The severed arm fell to the ground. Without the Dharmic powers of the conjoint body realm to defend, the Kacharati Dao fire intensified and burned the severed arm into ashes instantly. "Thank you, Desolate Marshal." Elder Lei Lai sneered. Up till this point of his cultivation, he had lived for more than 10,000 years and had been through countless battles with rich combat experience. Earlier on, his intention was to rely on the heaven-slaying sword Qi to sever his arm. Not only did he neutralize the sharpness of the heaven-slaying sword Qi, he even managed to remove the Kacharati Dao fire that was burning on his arm. No one who could cultivate to the conjoint body realm was someone easy to deal with. "Thank me?" Su Zimo's voice sounded behind him in an extremely cold manner. "The gift I'm giving you is still on the way." Elder Lei Lai sensed that something was amiss the moment he expressed his thanks. He wanted to channel his blood Qi to regrow his arm. However, the wound on his arm still had countless sword Qi remaining and was tearing his wounds apart with blood flowing endlessly. Of course, with his Dharmic powers, he could purge the sword Qi from his broken arm after resting for a few days. However, at that moment, he was on the battlefield and Su Zimo had already arrived behind him silently. He did not have the chance at all. This change completely exceeded Elder Lei Lai's expectations and had a huge impact on him. "Fellow Taoists, help me." A flustered look flashed through Elder Lei Lai's eyes as he shouted, "Help me delay this lad for a moment." Too late. Su Zimo sneered and suddenly opened his mouth, roaring. "Kill." Thunderclap Kill had descended. This sound domain's secret skill was instantaneous and difficult to defend against. Under normal circumstances, given Elder Lei Lai's physique and bloodline, Su Zimo's Thunderclap Kill would not affect him at all. But now that Elder Lei Lai's arm was severed and his blood Qi was draining without stopping, he was in a state of panic. That roar nearly tore his guts. Elder Lei Lai's body shuddered and he paused for a moment. Su Zimo seized the opportunity and a green beam of light flew out from his glabella. It was the Creation Lotus platform. Reaching out, Su Zimo gripped the Creation Lotus platform in his palm and smashed it towards Elder Lei Lai's head. Bang! That smash was solid. Even with the Green Lotus true body, it was difficult to break through Elder Lei Lai's body. However, the Creation Lotus platform was different. Even if the Creation Green Lotus was not in its complete form and was merely a lotus platform, its toughness was not something that a body of flesh and blood could defend against. That single attack split Elder Lei Lai's head open and flesh splattered everywhere. A huge chunk of Elder Lei Lai's head caved in and his skull was mostly shattered. Pust. The crowd gasped. It was too tragic. A revered conjoint body mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect was beaten to such a state. Shoo! An essence spirit left the orifice and escaped into the distance with a flustered expression. It was Elder Lei Lai. However, his essence spirit did not manage to escape far before his vision darkened, as though 5 gigantic mountains were approaching him rapidly. This. Elder Lei Lai's pupils constricted violently and he did not know what happened. However, it was clear for the bystanders. Many cultivators had long noticed that the 80-odd feet tall Rolai Dharmic body had already stood guard before Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit left his body and opened its gigantic palm. Although Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit escaped, it could not escape from the Rolai Dharmic body. The 5 mountains he saw were merely the fingers of the Rolai Dharmic body. Boom! The Rolai Dharmic body closed its fingers and gripped its palm tightly. Instantly, Elder Lei Lai's essence spirit was crushed by the palm of the Rolai Dharmic body and perished on the spot. The entire hall froze momentarily. Dead. A conjoint body mighty figure of Chaos Essence sect was killed by a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord. Even his essence spirit could not escape. Furthermore, this was a 1 versus 3 situation. Initially, the 3 mighty figures surrounded Su Zimo but could not take him down forcefully. Now that Elder Lei Lai was dead, there were only 2 mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace left. Su Zimo turned around with a cold gaze. With a single thought, the Rolai Dharmic body charged over and joined the battle as well. 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics fought against 2 mighty figures. This time round, the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace were already disadvantaged. From time to time, Su Zimo would release the heaven-slaying sword Qi at the side and it was impossible to defend against. As time passed by, the 2 mighty figures were pushed back in defeat in a wretched manner. Boom! Before long, the Rulai Dharmic body obtained an opportunity and punched the mighty figure of Sword Sect on the chest, causing his body to fly. The mighty figure of Sword Sect flew a few thousand feet away and smashed against the wall behind him, sliding down slowly. His tendons and bones felt like they were about to split and he had a pained expression. Of course, that single punch was not enough to threaten his life. The mighty figure of Sword Sect was defeated and the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace was the only one left. He could not defend against the ferocious attacks of the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. A flash of blood appeared. A bloodied wound appeared on the abdomen of the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace and his organs nearly slid out. Piak! Immediately after, the whip of the Thunder Dharmic body struck the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace and sent him flying as well into the wall. Both mighty figures were defeated. Su Zimo won against 3 opponents single-handedly. Boom! When the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace collided against the wall, it caused the wall to collapse and countless stone slabs fell with dust billowing. The mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace took advantage of the chaos to escape to the other side of the wall. Su Zimo sped forward. He stopped instinctively at the edge of the wall. On the other side of the wall was another group of cultivators that were trapped in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Right now, they were in a fierce battle with only slightly more than 100 people left. Dao Lord Purple Sword of Sword Sect and Monk Black Gold of Diamond Monastery were among them. Su Zimo frowned. Something was amiss. The strange feeling spiraling in his heart intensified. Chapter 1265, Formless Heaven and Earth. Chapter 1265, Formless Heaven and Earth. Every cultivator had expended a lot of energy in the consecutive battles. Su Zimo's situation was similar. After all, he was only at the mid-stage Dharma characteristic realm. In order to suppress 3 mighty figures of super sex domineeringly, he expended immense Dharmic powers. His 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were already at the end of their flight and dim without light. The cultivators who survived till now in those secret chambers were all experts with countless trump cards and none of them were easy to deal with. Su Zimo was still pondering about the strange feeling he had when he entered the ancient temple. He stood on the spot motionlessly and did not continue to chase after the mighty figures of Sword Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace. Right then, something happened. Not far away from Su Zimo, an unassuming wooden fish in the dust suddenly exploded and 2 golden beams of light burst forth from it, speeding towards him. Sensing it long ago, Su Zimo swept his gaze and could not help but shudder. He could clearly see that the 2 golden beams were Buddha beads. More importantly, the materials, size and even aura of the 2 Buddha beads were identical to the Mingwang prayer beads on his left wrist. There were 2 different Dharmic seals etched on the 2 Buddha beads as well. The final 2 Buddha beads of the Mingwang prayer beads that were lost. Even with Su Zimo's temperament, he was slightly emotional at the sudden sight of the 2 Buddha beads. After all, the Dharmic seals on the 2 Buddha beads were the strongest and most ferocious of the Daming Dharmic seals. Furthermore, if the 2 Buddha beads were connected to the 4 Buddha beads on his left wrist, the Mingwang prayer beads would be complete and whole. This Dharmic weapon that was once the foundation of Daming Monastery would unleash its true might. The Mingwang prayer beads had been passed down for a long time and only the titular disciple of Daming Monastery had a chance to wear them. Unfortunately, the Mingwang prayer beads were destroyed and lost in a massive battle tens of thousands of years ago and had never been assembled again. But now that Su Zimo had the chance to recover the Mingwang prayer beads, how could he not be tempted? Monk Yuan Bei was already in his twilight years. Daming Monastery had long vanished as well. If the Mingwang prayer beads could be restored, it would hold an extraordinary meaning for Monk Yuan Bei, Daming Monastery, and even Su Zimo himself. Without any hesitation, Su Zimo reached out and grabbed the 2 Buddha beads. Desolate Marshal, this belongs to the Buddhist monasteries. You can't taint it. Monk Black Gold hollered and charged forward with widened eyes. His body shone with a golden glow as though he was covered in a layer of gold foil that shone with divinity. Radiant and golden, he was unstoppable. Humph. Su Zimo sneered, this is indeed something from the Buddhist monasteries, but what has it got to do with Diamond Monastery? How dare you come and snatch the Mingwang prayer beads? The entire cultivation world knew that Su Zimo had inherited the legacy of Daming Monastery. In Tianhuang mainland, Su Zimo was probably the only one qualified to wear the Mingwang prayer beads. I don't care who you are. I'm bent on getting my hands on the Mingwang prayer beads. Anyone that fights with me can't blame me for going on a massacre. The reason why Monk Black Gold came this time round was because of the Mingwang prayer beads. He was fearless even against Su Zimo. He was the second on the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. Bang! Reaching out, his blood chi surged and the bloodline on his palm expanded. It shone with a golden light and crushed down on Su Zimo's head with an endless might. Diamond Monastery specialized in body tempering and was the strongest in melee combat in the Buddhist monasteries. Although Monk Black Gold's bloodline had not cultivated to the tsunami blood realm, the faint sound of tides could already be heard when he channeled his blood chi. The moment Su Zimo grabbed the 2 Buddha beads, Monk Black Gold's attack descended. He willed. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics of the Thunder Dharmic body, Rulai Dharmic body and Heavenly Fiend Dharma body attacked at the same time and suppressed Monk Black Gold. Even if the 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were at the end of the road, they were not something that a physical body could defend against. Boom! A loud bang sounded from within Monk Black Gold's body as a gigantic figure appeared above his head that shone with endless golden light. This was the first time he had used his heaven and earth Dharma characteristic after entering the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. 18 meters metal body. The legacy Dharma characteristic of Diamond Monastery. Cultivators who cultivated that Dharma characteristic would be able to condense 60 feet tall heaven and earth Dharma characteristics at the early stage Dharma characteristic realm. As their cultivation increased, their Dharma characteristics would increase continuously. Back then, Monk Black Gold only lost to Tao Lord Immortal Sword by a single move. His 18 meters metal body was also 85 feet tall. However, that was the battlefield of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking and it was close to 1,000 years ago. Right now, the heaven and earth Dharma characteristic that Monk Black Gold cultivated had already reached a height of 89 feet and was the same as Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Boom! The 18 meters metal body collided heavily against Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. It shuddered. Although the 18 meters metal body was a level higher than Su Zimo's 3 Dharma characteristics in terms of height, it was still slightly inferior to fight against 3 of them single-handedly. Furthermore, the grade of the 18 meters metal body was much weaker than the Rulai Dharmic body to begin with. Even the 3 battered heaven and earth Dharma characteristics released terrifying power and shattered Monk Black Gold's 18 meters metal body completely. After that battle, Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were riddled with holes as well. Formless heaven and earth. Right then, a clear voice sounded. It was calm and indifferent but contained immense power as it descended on Su Zimo's 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. The 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were disintegrating at a speed visible to the naked eye. He swept his gaze across. The one who attacked was a monk of Formless Monastery, a conjoint body mighty figure. In Formless Monastery, there was a secret skill known as the Formless Heaven and Earth. When released, that secret skill could cause an opponent's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. The name of Formless Monastery was related to that secret skill as well. In the previous Dharma characteristic rankings, many cultivators were most unwilling to face monks of Formless Monastery. Imagine that the battle had just begun and one's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic had just been formed when it was destroyed by a secret skill. How was he going to fight? Of course, that secret skill was not invincible as well. If he wanted to shatter the other party's heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, the monk of Formless monastery had to have a high enough cultivation realm and a deep understanding of that secret skill. Furthermore, that secret skill was useless against a supreme Dharma characteristic. At that moment, it was not only Diamond Monastery and Formless Monastery. Even the monks of Hollow Monastery and Wisdom Monastery and the nun of Clear Heart Nunnery were targeting Su Zimo. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo was surrounded once more. Desolate Marshal, let's see how long more you can last without your heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. Monk Black Gold hollered. The moment he said that, a dull thud sounded from his chest. It was dull and powerful, like an ancient divine being beating a drum. Develop a mind that abides nowhere. Monk Black Gold uttered the words with a robust, metallic sound. Dong. Another dull thud sounded. Others might not know about it, but Su Zimo cultivated many Buddhist sutras and knew that this was from the Diamond Sutra, a secret classic of Diamond Monastery. By comprehending its obscurities and cultivating to the perfected realm, one could condense an incomparably strong diamond heart. The diamond heart could boost one's blood chi exponentially, increasing their strength by a few folds. The dull thuds were none other than the beating of Monk Black Gold's diamond heart. Chapter 1266, Everything is Dharmic. Chapter 1266, Everything is Dharmic. There was naturally a reason why Monk Black Gold was able to reach second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 1,000 years ago. Swoosh. His blood chi surged and the sound of a tsunami echoed from his body. With the help of the diamond heart, Monk Black Gold's bloodline reached the realm of tsunami blood. Desolate Marshal, hand over the Buddha beads and I'll spare your life. He strode toward Su Zimo with huge strides and his eyes bulged slightly. They were menacing and shone with a resplendent golden light. He even used the visual technique of Diamond Monastery. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind as he looked at Monk Black Gold. Suddenly, his hand that was holding the Buddha beads trembled. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo suddenly threw the 2 Buddha beads in his hands over. This sudden change stunned many cultivators. Desolate Marshal had always been domineering. How could he have been scared into submission by a single sentence from Monk Black Gold? Or could it be that Desolate Marshal was truly exhausted and could no longer fight? Many cultivators were puzzled. However, everyone quickly cast those doubts aside and attacked one after another to fight for the Buddha beads. The battle was completely ignited. On the other hand, Su Zimo became an outsider and stood outside the battlefield. A look of shock flashed through his eyes as he murmured softly, "Fake, it's all fake." He had long sensed that something was amiss. Everything seemed to have gone too smoothly. From the moment they entered the secret chamber, every cultivator could find what they wanted without spending much effort. Initially, Su Zimo merely thought that the treasures in the Grand Primordium ancient temple were truly endless. However, he only came to a gradual realization after he fought Monk Black Gold and thought about the Diamond Sutra thereafter. The Diamond Sutra was a secret manual of Diamond Monastery that Su Zimo had never cultivated before. However, in the Tao inheritance ground, he obtained some legacies of the Buddhist monasteries. Among them, there was a mighty figure of the Buddhist monasteries who mentioned something about the Diamond Sutra. Su Zimo opened his mouth gently and said a verse of the sutra, "Everything is Dharmic and illusory like a dream. Like dew and lightning, everything is merely fleeting." Although the verse was ordinary, every single word seemed to possess a mysterious power. As the verse was chanted, the scene before Su Zimo changed continuously before coming to a stop. There was no secret chamber or treasure before him. He was still in the grand hall he arrived in when he just entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple. On the walls were the 4 humongous and menacing Vajras. The green lights flickered sinisterly beneath the walls. Nothing changed. And none of them had left the hall. Everywhere Su Zimo looked, he could see countless corpses and fresh blood. The entire hall was dyed red with blood and the stench of blood filled the air. He saw Monk Black Gold, Dao Lord Purple Sword, the mighty figure of Sword Sect and the mighty figure of Zephyr Thunder Palace. Those people were still fighting. Ha 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 ha. Monk Black Gold reared his head in wild laughter. I've got it. The Mingwang prayer beads are mine. Su Zimo looked at everything in shock and felt chills run down his spine. In Monk Black Gold's hands, there were no Mingwang prayer beads, there were 2 bloodied eyeballs. However, Monk Black Gold and all the cultivators present, including Su Zimo earlier on, fell into a hallucination and thought that the 2 eyeballs were the Mingwang prayer beads. This is the ancient Overlord Spear of Overlord Palace. Anyone who dares to fight for it is going against Overlord Palace. A Dao Lord of the Fiend's sects possessed torrential fiend flames and killed in all directions. However, what he was wielding was not the ancient Overlord Spear, but a bone that had appeared out of nowhere. A cultivator hid in a corner, drinking blood from the ground in huge mouthfuls. However, he mumbled, "The heavens are truly on my side. To think that I would find a primordial divine spring in this ancient temple. Crazy." Everyone had gone crazy. Within that illusion, nothing could be seen clearly. The only way one could make out everything that was happening in the hall clearly was if they got out. All the treasures were fake. However, the fights between the cultivators were real. There were at least 5,000 cultivators who entered the hall, but now, there were less than 1,000 left. Furthermore, that number was still decreasing rapidly. Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled something and hurriedly took out the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir he had obtained from his storage bag. It was the same as what he had seen. In other words, the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir was real. The entire place was a mix of truth and fiction. True and fake, everything was a dreamlike fantasy. At that moment, Su Zimo was in a daze and could not figure it out. What was even more frightening was who set this trap and dragged the 5,000-odd cultivators who entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple inside it. Even conjoint body mighty figures could not break free from that illusion. Even with Su Zimo's Dao heart, he was deceived for a long time before waking up. Who was it? What was his cultivation realm? Dharma characteristic realm? Conjoint body realm? Why did he set up such a trap? Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled the many legends about the Grand Primordium ancient temple. He vaguely realized that there was something wrong with the Grand Primordium ancient temple to begin with. All these years, cultivators who died in the ancient temple most likely died in their own hallucinations without waking up. The battle continued. Even Monk Black Gold, who was ranked 2nd on the Dharma characteristic ranking, was killed by a mighty figure after killing many cultivators consecutively and died on the spot. Even at death's door, Monk Black Gold did not break free from his hallucinations and was still indignant with widened eyes. It was impossible for Su Zimo to wake the cultivators from their hallucinations. The moment he approached them, the cultivators seemed to be agitated and attacked him wildly, thinking that he was here to fight for their treasures. In reality, the so-called treasures were merely bones and broken limbs. Some of the cultivators even held a severed head like a treasure with intoxicated expressions. His spirit perception warned him repeatedly. His spirit perception had been warning him ever since he stepped foot into the Grand Primordium ancient temple. However, Su Zimo could not sense where the danger was at all. He had already obtained the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir, and right now, the only thing on his mind was to leave this Grand Primordium ancient temple that was even more terrifying than hell. Bang! 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 Su Zimo avoided some cultivators and struck continuously against the 4 stone doors of the Grand Primordium ancient temple. However, he could not shake the stone doors with his strength. He could not get out. A sinister wind suddenly blew in the sealed hall. Su Zimo felt a chill run down his spine as though someone was approaching him. Hurriedly, he summoned his creation lotus platform and it hovered above his head as he turned around. There was nothing. Taking a deep breath of air, Su Zimo stabilized his Dao heart and chanted internally, everything is Dharmic and illusory like a dream. Like dew and lightning, everything is merely fleeting. Immediately after, he felt his hairs stand on end. He merely chanted that sentence internally. However, he truly heard that sentence as every single word reverberated through the hall. It was a completely foreign voice. It was round, calm and pure with a unique magnetism. However, to Su Zimo, it sounded like the voice of a demon from hell that sent chills down his spine. Apart from him who was awake and could say those words, there was another person awake in the hall. It was most likely the person who set the trap. Chapter 1267, Truth. Chapter 1267, Truth. Su Zimo did not move at all and tried his best to remain calm as his eyes shone with a cold glint. The voice was erratic and he could not determine where the person who set up the trap was. Furthermore, only he could hear that voice. The other cultivators in the ancient temple were still immersed in their hallucinations as they fought and massacred one another. None of them heard the voice. Fellow Taoist, you sure are capable to be able to comprehend an illusion's secret skill as such from the Diamond Sutra. Suddenly, Su Zimo spoke. Although he had not cultivated the Diamond Sutra before, he knew that it was a body-tempering technique of Diamond Monastery. Throughout history, there had never been a monk of Diamond Monastery that comprehended such a secret skill from the Diamond Sutra. One could imagine the level of comprehension and talent the person who set this trap had. There were many different types of illusion techniques in the cultivation world. The sect that was best at illusion techniques was the Fiend sect, Illusion Fiend cult. However, Su Zimo had fought against the paragons of Illusion Fiend cult before and even their secret skills could not bewitch him. Up till this point of his cultivation, Su Zimo had never encountered such a terrifying illusion technique. In truth, he had been extremely cautious the moment he entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Even so, he was still tricked. In fact, even now, he could not figure out when the illusion technique descended. Was it after he entered the ancient temple or after he snatched the 9 Revolutions Soul Return Elixir? The person who set this trap gave Su Zimo a feeling that he was more terrifying than all the enemies he had encountered in the past. Di'in and Dao Lord Hatred did not give him the same pressure as this person either. This was an extremely dangerous existence. In fact, Su Zimo knew nothing about him. He was only making a preliminary guess that the person who set this trap was most likely an expert of the Buddhist monasteries. Su Zimo's sudden statement was partly due to his shock at the methods of the person who laid the trap. At the same time, he was testing the waters to try and locate the person who laid the trap. Fufu. The voice laughed and asked, "Are you looking for me?" Although Su Zimo was expressionless, his heart stirred. He still could not find the ladder. There was no way for him to fight. Right from the beginning, the person who set the trap had been taking the initiative to lead him and everyone else by the nose. Right then, Su Zimo felt like he was being spied on. Suddenly, he turned around and focused his gaze. That single look caused his pupils to constrict. On the wall on the east side of the ancient temple, the 90 feet tall country pillar Vajra actually walked down from the wall. He was dressed in white armor and held a pipa as he glared at Su Zimo angrily. Pust! Su Zimo gasped. One of the 4 Vajras came alive. This was definitely not a hallucination. Suddenly, Su Zimo recalled something. Ever since he entered the ancient temple, he had a feeling that he was being spied on, but he could not find the source. Now that he thought about it, the feeling of being spied on came from this guardian Vajra. Clang! Clang! Suddenly, the country pillar Vajra hugged his pipa and strummed his fingertips against the strings, letting out an ear-piercing sound of metal clashing that contained a steely killing intent. Frowning, Su Zimo felt a sharp pain in his ears and could not help but grunt. Dozens of cultivators that were fighting around the vicinity of the country pillar Vajra suddenly stopped with stiff expressions. Poof! 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 Immediately after, streaks of blood appeared on the faces and bodies of the dozens of cultivators and exploded into blood mists. If Su Zimo could not withstand the sound of the pipa even with his physique, the outcome of the other cultivators was imaginable. All of a sudden, sensing something, Su Zimo looked to the other side. On the southern wall, a 90 feet tall figure walked down with a terrifying aura. The Growth Vajra. This figure was green and wore armor. Wielding a sword, he was filled with killing intent. The sword slashed forward. More than 100 cultivators in front of him were severed at the waist. In fact, there were even conjoint body mighty figures among them as endless blood splattered in a shocking manner. What was even more frightening was that the cultivators were still hallucinating and could not break free even till their deaths. Roar. Right then, a loud dragon roar sounded from the west. He turned towards the voice. The Boundless Vision Vajra on the west wall had come to life as well. Dressed in red armor, there was a scarlet divine dragon coiling around his muscular arm. It opened its gigantic mouth and let out a deafening roar. The moment the scarlet dragon flew out, it opened its mouth and swallowed the dozens of cultivators that stood in its way instantly. There was no blood even. Dozens of Dharma characteristic Tao lords were devoured. The number of cultivators in the Grand Primordium ancient temple decreased. Su Zimo turned around once more and looked at the north wall. True enough. The infinite hearing Vajra on the north wall had already arrived as well. He was 90 feet tall and was green, wearing armor as well. He wielded a treasure umbrella that seemed like it could cover the skies. When the infinite hearing Vajra released his arm, the umbrella spun out. The 100-odd cultivators enveloped by the umbrella were suddenly sucked towards it by a powerful suction force. It was as though there was an endless abyss beneath the umbrella that devoured all the cultivators present without any corpse left. The 4 guardian Vajras were all alive. To be precise, right from the beginning, the 4 guardian Vajras were not dead objects or merely drawings on the walls. Hundreds of cultivators were killed instantly the moment the 4 of them made a move. There were less than 500 cultivators alive in the hall. The 4 guardian Vajras were way too terrifying. Even with Su Zimo's cultivation, he felt suffocated against the might of the 4 guardian Vajras. Were the 4 guardian Vajras the ones who set the trap? Something was amiss. There must be something wrong. The 4 guardian Vajras were legends of the Buddhist monasteries. Even if they were real, they should have been in the upper world and definitely not Tianhuang mainland. Otherwise, they would no longer be mere legends. There would definitely be clear records of them in the ancient books of the Buddhist monasteries in Tianhuang mainland. In other words, the 4 guardian Vajras before him were definitely not the legendary 4 Vajras of the Buddhist monasteries. However, Su Zimo was convinced that everything he saw was not a hallucination. The massacre of the 4 guardian Vajras earlier on was real as well. Without taking a step forward, the 4 guardian Vajras glared at Su Zimo. A mocking look flashed through their eyes as they wanted to see if Su Zimo could guess the final answer. All of a sudden, a thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. That single thought was extremely terrifying and he felt chills run down his spine because of it. However, the more he thought about it, the more likely it was the truth. Indeed, the 4 guardian Vajras before him were not the legendary 4 Vajras of the Buddhist monasteries. That was because the 4 guardian Vajras before him were all 90 feet tall supreme Dharma characteristics. Chapter 1268, It's You. Chapter 1268, It's You. Supreme Dharma characteristics. Su Zimo said slowly, fellow Taoists, the 4 of you sure are capable. 4. Fufu. Suddenly, the voice sounded and laughed, seemingly mocking. A figure walked out slowly from the darkness before Su Zimo. There was only a single figure. There was no one else. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of a possibility. You're wrong about one thing. There's no 4 of us, I'm alone. The figure said slowly. Pust. Su Zimo was stunned and his eyes flashed with shock. When he saw the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics, his first reaction was that 4 monster incarnates of the Dharma characteristic realm had joined forces to set up a trap in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. However, he had not expected that all 4 supreme Dharma characteristics were cultivated by a single person. One person, 4 Dharma characteristics. Up till this point of his cultivation, how many opportunities and encounters had Su Zimo come across? There were probably not many people who could compare with the opportunity he had in the Tao inheritance ground. Even then, he only cultivated 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics. However, the figure before him had 4 Dharma characteristics. Furthermore, all of them were supreme Dharma characteristics. That was way too terrifying. Notwithstanding the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics, the fact that a Dharma characteristic Tao Lord was able to lure more than 5,000 cultivators, conjoint body mighty figures included, into a trap in the Grand Primordium ancient temple using a single illusion technique, what sort of methods were those? The likes of Di'in and Tao Lord Hatred were far inferior compared to this person before Su Zimo. Even his green lotus true body could not compare to the person before him. Su Zimo believed that with his talent and comprehension of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend Taos, his green lotus true body would eventually be able to cultivate all 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics to the level of the 90 feet supreme. Even so, he only had 3. It was still 1 less than the 4 of the person who set this trap. Of course, that did not mean that Su Zimo was inferior to that person. If he included his dragon true body, Su Zimo would definitely be able to fight this person with both true bodies. If he could attain greater mastery of his martial Tao true body, this person would be even less of a match for him. Even so, it was shocking enough to know that 4 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics were formed by a single person. This generation was truly filled with paragons and monster incarnates. Even a Tao Lord who had formed 4 supreme Dharma characteristics had appeared. A monster incarnate as such was definitely not a nobody. Why hadn't anyone heard of this person before? As Su Zimo pondered, the figure had already arrived before him and revealed his true appearance. Unexpectedly, this was not a monk. The intruder was dressed in grayish-white robes and had shoulder-length hair that covered most of his face, revealing only one eye. That eye was clear, bright and gentle, as though it possessed boundless wisdom. With the eye, it was as though all the panic, fear, uneasiness and nervousness had vanished and one would calm down. Unless they witnessed it personally, it was hard for anyone to imagine that a cultivator with such a pure eye would be so ruthless and cold-blooded. There seemed to be a thin, blood scar on the person's glabella. However, the scar was covered by his long hair and could not be seen clearly. While Su Zimo was sizing up the white-robed man, the latter was doing the same. The white-robed man seemed to have thought of something and frowned slightly, revealing a reminiscent expression. A moment later, his expression changed as he looked at Su Zimo in disbelief and shock. "It's you?" Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. Although it was only 2 words, the information revealed by those words was way too great. From the tone of the white-robed man, it was clear that the latter had seen him before. However, no matter how Su Zimo tried, he could not recall where he had seen this person before. Although this person's appearance was not outstanding, Su Zimo believed that he would definitely not forget anyone who had such clear and pure eyes. What a surprise! The white-robed man shook his head gently and lamented. "You've seen me before?" Suddenly, Su Zimo asked. The white-robed man smiled meaningfully and did not deny. "We met once." Once. Countless clues surfaced in Su Zimo's mind. The answer was about to surface. As long as he connected the fragments and clues together, that would be the final answer. They had only met once. Grand Primordium ancient temple. More than 100 years ago. Fresh blood. Suddenly, Su Zimo's gaze intensified as he glared at the white-robed man before him and said word by word, "So, it's you, Tao Lord Blood Fiend." The white-robed man was stunned. Su Zimo said slowly, "More than 100 years ago, in the underground fiend palace of the North region, the resurrected white bone in the coffin was you." At that moment, although Su Zimo still had many questions in his mind, there was an explanation for many of them. Back then, Su Zimo was still at the Foundation Establishment realm. Under Demonist G's invitation, he ventured deep underground to explore the inheritance of the Fiend's sections. To think that he would meet with immense danger and almost died. At that time, the white bones in the ancient coffin were resurrected and sucked the flesh of cultivators. Su Zimo had to make use of the divine phoenix bone to severely injure them. Finally, the ground collapsed and buried everything. As for Su Zimo and Demonist G, they hid in the stone coffin as well and avoided the calamity. It was in that stone coffin that Su Zimo obtained the Blood Refinement Fiend's Sutra and a Mingwang prayer bead. Later on, when he heard the legend of Dao Lord Blood Fiend from Monk Yuan Bei, he realized that the person suppressed in the stone coffin was most likely Dao Lord Blood Fiend. Of course, there were many details that could not be explained. For example, who was the one that suppressed Dao Lord Blood Fiend in the stone coffin? Why was there a single Mingwang prayer bead left in the stone coffin? If Dao Lord Blood Fiend knew the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra, why did he carve the cultivation technique on the coffin lid? Was it because he wanted to pass down the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra? The white-robed man did not refute and merely looked at Su Zimo indifferently. Su Zimo was even more certain now as he said coldly, "That single encounter between us you mentioned was in the Fiend Palace underground. However, you were just a skeleton back then. The difference compared to now is truly great. You've changed quite a bit as well." The white-robed man said, "Back then, you were merely a little Foundation Establishment cultivator. I didn't recognize you at the first instance when you grew to such an extent after more than 100 years." By saying that, the white-robed man indirectly acknowledged Su Zimo's speculation. Su Zimo looked at the corpses strewn all over the hall and sighed internally. "The reason why you spent so much effort to set this trap was because you wanted to make use of the fresh blood of these cultivators to cultivate the Blood Refinement Fiend's Sutra and recover your cultivation." Back when he heard that the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple had descended on Tianhuang mainland for the first time more than 100 years ago, he had already sensed that something was amiss. The timing was rather coincidental. However, he did not think too much about it. Now, it seemed like Dao Lord Blood Fiend had set up this trap in the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple after his rebirth in order to recover his cultivation swiftly. Over the years, countless cultivators have been buried here each time the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple descended. Their blood became a source of cultivation for Dao Lord Blood Fiend. Chapter 1269, The Exterior is a Reflection of the Interior. Chapter 1269, The Exterior is a Reflection of the Interior. The sounds of fighting and killing in the surroundings gradually faded. Right now, there were less than 200 cultivators remaining in the hall. Even though the remaining people had expended all their Dharmic powers, they were still fighting for the treasures with bloodshot eyes as though they had gone mad. Right from the beginning, the white-robed man did not make any moves at all. What he wanted to do was to release some specious news and lure the cultivators into the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple. Thereafter, he would release an illusion technique and bury the 5,000-odd cultivators there. The white-robed man was only at the Dharma characteristic realm. Su Zimo had once heard Monk Yuan Bei mention some legends about Dao Lord Blood Fiend. However, he only felt that fear when he truly faced this expert of the past. It was not only in terms of strength, but also his mental state, wisdom, planning and aura. There was also an indescribable pressure. When Su Zimo realized that the white-robed man before him was Dao Lord Blood Fiend, there was an explanation for everything. Of course, there were still some things that he could not figure out. What's up with this Grand Primordium Ancient Temple? Although there are no treasures inside, this ancient temple is real. How can you shift such a massive ancient temple continuously? Su Zimo asked. According to the rumors outside, the first time the Grand Primordium Ancient Temple descended was in the south region of Tianhuang mainland. Thereafter, every once in a while, this ancient temple would descend in a place and attract many cultivators in to hunt for treasures. It was antiquated and grand, dozens of times larger than the capital of Great Zhou. Su Zimo could not imagine how the white-robed man could shift such a massive object and carry it around him continuously. Since you're so smart, why don't you make a guess? The white-robed man seemed to admire Su Zimo as well and did not reply immediately, merely asking calmly. After pondering for a moment, a glint flashed through Su Zimo's eyes as he blurted, "This grand Primordium ancient temple is your Dharmic weapon." That was the only possibility that could explain his previous doubts. It was also the only possibility that could explain why the white-robed man could control the 4 stone doors at the entrance of the ancient temple and trap everyone here. That's right. The white-robed man nodded and laughed mockingly. This is my destiny Dharmic weapon. How can these people be a match for me if they enter my destiny Dharmic weapon? A moving ancient ruin was strange to begin with. However, no one expected that this so-called ancient ruin was a destiny Dharmic weapon of a cultivator. Su Zimo asked again, "When did you release your illusion technique?" Pausing for a moment, he reminisced. The moment after the stone doors fell and the row of green lights beneath the wall lit up, right? Su Zimo had a deep impression of that scene. The sudden descent of the stone doors caused everyone in the hall to panic. At that moment, the green lanterns were lit and flickered. The 4 guardian Vajras on the wall seemed to have come alive as well. Many cultivators were shocked. At that moment, all the cultivators felt their hearts skip a beat and revealed openings. That's right. The white-robed man did not hide anything and nodded. Thereafter, he smiled gently. These cultivators are trapped and unable to extricate themselves, but my illusion technique was merely a bait. The true source lies within your hearts. Extending his slender and fair finger, the white-robed man pointed at Su Zimo's chest. Su Zimo frowned slightly and pondered for a moment. As though he understood something, he said, "The exterior is a reflection of the interior." That's right. The white-robed man nodded. The treasures you see are all because of your own desires. That also explained why all the cultivators could find the treasures they wanted in the Grand Primordium ancient temple. After all, those so-called treasures were merely the imaginations of every cultivator. That was also the reason why the illusion technique was so terrifying. There was only a single way to break out of the illusion. It was to suppress the obsession in one's heart temporarily. If one had no desires and was naturally formless, they could break free from the illusion. It was the same for Su Zimo. He had to endure the reluctance in his heart to cast out the 2 Buddha beads before he obtained actual freedom. Although the process seemed simple, it was shuddering. If he could not break free from the obsession in his heart, Su Zimo would be like the cultivators in the main hall right now, still immersed in the fight in his hallucinations. Even if his combat strength was heaven-defying and he killed everyone, so what? His inevitable outcome would be to be killed mercilessly by the white-robed man without knowing how he died. Su Zimo said, "Legend has it that you are extremely bloodthirsty and cold-blooded. I've finally witnessed it today." Fu. The white-robed man laughed and a hint of emotions that no one else could understand flashed through his eyes. That's bloodthirsty. You must have lost count of the lives you've taken before you were able to cultivate to this realm. Su Zimo was silent. The cultivation world was incomparably cruel. All of them so-called paragons and monster incarnates had to step on countless corpses to get to where they were today. The white-robed man said, "These people are blinded by greed and are beyond hope. The greater their greed, the deeper they fall. It's fine if someone like that dies. What's there to pity? Furthermore, I didn't kill anyone much. They were the ones who killed one another." The white-robed man laughed indifferently with a mocking expression. The fact that he was able to be known as Tao Lord Blood Fiend and create a cultivation technique such as the Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra meant that he naturally had his own way of thinking. It was difficult for others to change that. Additionally, this is not a doomed situation. The white-robed man continued, "I left 2 methods of survival for this trap. If those cultivators were not greedy, they would naturally not have come to this Grand Primordium ancient temple and undergo this calamity. That is the first method of survival. Even if they enter the ancient temple, as long as any of those cultivators can let go of their obsessions and break free from the illusion, I'll spare their lives and send them out of the ancient temple. That is the second method of survival. If they are able to let go of their obsessions, I'll even grant them opportunities, cultivation techniques and secret skills, elixirs or universal treasures. For more than 100 years, some of the cultivators who entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple survived as well. That was the reason why those cultivators who survived managed to obtain quite a bit of opportunities after leaving the Grand Primordium ancient temple. Su Zimo said indifferently, more importantly, the reason why you let those cultivators off and even gave them opportunities was because they could attract even more people. If every cultivator that entered the Grand Primordium ancient temple were to die inside, who would dare to explore? The only way the white-robed man could attract more cultivators was if he intentionally let some cultivators off and allowed them to obtain some opportunities. You are indeed smart. The white-robed man smiled. Su Zimo raised his brow and suddenly said, according to your words, I've already broken free from the illusion technique. Are you going to let me live as well? The smile in the eyes of the white-robed man intensified as he shook his head slowly. Not for you. Chapter 1270, Attack. Chapter 1270, Attack. The white-robed man said those words with a smile. In fact, Su Zimo could not sense any killing intent from the tone of the white-robed man. Instead, he sounded like an accomplished monk who was speaking to him warmly. However, Su Zimo knew very well that the white-robed man would definitely not let him off. It was not only because he had severely injured the white-robed man more than 100 years ago and the two of them had already established a feud. More than that, it was because he knew the identity of the white-robed man and the secret of the Grand Primordium ancient temple. There was no way the white-robed man could let him leave alive. There was no doubt to the outcome if the two of them were to fight. Notwithstanding the fact that Su Zimo had just fought a huge battle, his 3 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics had already dissipated and it was difficult for him to condense them in a short period of time. To be fair, even if he was in his peak condition, there was no way he could be a match for the white-robed man. That was an entire for supreme Dharma characteristics. Back then, Tao Lord Hatred had already forced the Green Lotus true body to its limits with a single supreme Dharma characteristic. If the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics attacked at the same time, the Green Lotus true body might not even be able to withstand a single move. Of course, Su Zimo would not surrender. On the one hand, he was truly curious by constantly asking questions. On the other hand, he was stalling for time and recovering his stamina in secret to nourish his essence spirit so that he could prepare for his final counterattack. He only had a single chance to attack. If the white-robed man realized what was happening and the 4 guardian Vajras moved at the same time, it would be difficult for the Green Lotus true body to escape death. The eyes of the white-robed man were clear as he looked at Su Zimo with a faint smile. Those eyes were filled with endless wisdom, as though they could peer through all the secrets on Su Zimo, as though they had already seen through his plans. Perhaps the reason why the white-robed man did not interfere was because he did not care at all. It was the way a cat looked at a rat. It was somewhat mocking and teasing. In the eyes of the white-robed man, Su Zimo might be a smart rat, but there was no way the latter could break free from his control. Su Zimo looked at the 4 guardian Vajras and sighed. To think that the dignified Tao Lord Blood Fiend would have such attainments in the Tao of Buddhism. Even in the ancient era, there was probably no Buddhist disciple who could condense 4 heaven and earth Dharma characteristics and cultivate them to the level of a supreme Dharma characteristic, let alone cultivators of the current era. However, the more that was the case, the more it proved how terrifying the white-robed man was. He created the unprecedented Blood Refinement Fiend Sutra. When reviewed, it was said that even the ancient emperors could not compare to him in terms of bloodline attainment. To think that such a ruthless fiend who could kill without batting an eyelid would possess such frightening attainments in the Buddhist Tao as well. The combination of the Buddhist and fiend Taos formed a unique aura around the white-robed man. What are fiends and Buddhas? Seemingly moved by Su Zimo's words, the white-robed man said indifferently, fiends can become Buddhas and Buddhas can turn into fiends. What's the difference between the two? Su Zimo was tense and focused the entire time. The moment a ripple appeared in the white-robed man's mind, he sensed it. An opportunity. Kill. Suddenly, Su Zimo opened his mouth and released a sound domain secret skill. This was only the first move and his killing move was behind. The two of them were only 10 feet apart from one another. At this distance, Dharma characteristic Tao lords with weak physiques could be killed by Thunderclap Kill if they were unprepared. However, the release of Thunderclap Kill did not affect the white-robed man at all. The white-robed man still looked at Su Zimo calmly with a hint of mockery in his eyes and a fake smile. Not good. Su Zimo's heart sank. Could this opening have been revealed by the white-robed man intentionally? Even so, Su Zimo couldn't care less. The arrow was on the bow and had to be released. Shoo! 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 A green glow burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella. His creation lotus platform hovered above his head. However, in reality, the 54 green lotus seeds were hidden in his consciousness the entire time and were prepared to deal a fatal blow. The 54 green lotus seeds left his consciousness and formed a long sword that shone with a green glow instantly. Instantly, the green lotus sword arrived and slashed down at the white-robed man's head. This was a killing technique targeted at the essence spirit. Even some conjoint body mighty figures could not withstand a single slash of the green lotus sword. Su Zimo knew very well that the green lotus true body was definitely not a match for the white-robed man in a head-on battle. Furthermore, he could not even conjure a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic right now. The only way he could survive was if he fought against the white-robed man with his essence spirit and life on the line. Moreover, the white-robed man could not afford to be distracted in an essence spirit fight that would render the 4 guardian Vajras as useless decorations. If he could kill the white-robed man's essence spirit, the 4 supreme Dharma characteristics would naturally collapse without a fight. Of course, if he failed, everything would come to an end. The pupils of the white-robed man constricted slightly when he sensed the sharpness of the green lotus sword. Even so, there was no hint of panic on his face. It was as though no one in this world could make him panic. The white-robed man did not move at all and merely watched calmly as the green lotus sword slashed over and entered his glabella. Su Zimo's eyes widened in disbelief. It worked? Even the essence spirit of a conjoint body mighty figure could not defend against the sharpness of the green lotus sword once it entered his consciousness. After a momentary pause, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. Something was amiss. The life force of the white-robed man was not affected at all and his eyes were still clear and bright. He did not look like his essence spirit was destroyed at all. On the contrary, Su Zimo could no longer sense the green lotus sword after it pierced the white-robed man's glabella. What sort of powers were these? Su Zimo was shocked. He was extremely convinced that the white-robed man had not used any essence spirit secret skills or essence spirit Dharmic weapons the entire time. However, when the green lotus sword slashed into his consciousness, it was like a rock that fell into the ocean and was devoured without a trace. All of a sudden. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying energy fluctuation spread out from the white-robed man's glabella. In his glabella, the thin blood scar between the gaps of his black hair seemed to have turned brighter, as though a blood-colored eye was about to open. Immediately after, 54 green lotus seeds fell from the glabella of the white-robed man without any luster. The entire process was extremely short. In fact, Su Zimo did not even know what methods the white-robed man used to neutralize his green lotus sword. However, at that moment, he couldn't care less. Spirit Vanquishing Whip. Su Zimo roared and channeled his essence spirit once more, releasing a second essence spirit secret skill. He could not give the white-robed man any chance. Otherwise, with a single thought from the latter, the 4 guardian Vajras would surround him and he would not have any chance at all. Reaching out, Su Zimo pulled out a whip that was coiled with lightning from his glabella. It was blinding and emitted a destructive aura. Crackle. Su Zimo swung the spirit-vanquishing whip and whipped the white-robed man viciously. He refused to believe that the white-robed man could withstand his second essence spirit's secret skill without moving at all. Chapter 1271, Crushing Defeat. Chapter 1271, Crushing Defeat. The Thunder Emperor's Secret Skill. The eyes of the white-robed man lit up as he blurted out the origin of the spirit-vanquishing whip. This time round, he did not get careless and channeled his mental cultivation technique as well while chanting a few Dharmic arts to condense an essence spirit's secret skill. Those Dharmic arts sounded familiar to Su Zimo. Before long, he realized that it was the essence spirit secret skill from the Blood Refinement Fiend's Sutra, Blood Drop Art. A drop of grisly blood floated out of the white-robed man's consciousness and collided with the spirit-vanquishing whip with a terrifying and evil power. Buzz! Buzz! Almost instantly, the thunder on the spirit-vanquishing whip was suppressed by that drop of blood. Normally, the power of thunder was the most effective against evil. However, the power of evil was so strong that even thunder could not suppress it. Just as the spirit-vanquishing whip was about to disperse, Su Zimo channeled his mental cultivation technique once more and channeled his essence spirit, releasing his third essence spirit's secret skill. The Rulite Dharmic Seal. A golden swastika symbol flashed and burst forth from Su Zimo's glabella. It was sacred and flawless, as though it possessed immense power and could suppress all living beings. The swastika symbol flew towards the white-robed man slowly. After releasing that essence spirit's secret skill, Su Zimo's body swayed and his face turned incomparably pale. Initially, he had already fought against many cultivators in the hall and had expended a lot of Dharmic powers and essence spirit. Right now, forcefully channeling 3 essence spirit's secret skills was already his limit. Su Zimo grit his teeth and endured the tearing pain from his essence spirit. He activated the Creation Lotus platform and struck the head of the white-robed man. The two of them were extremely close to one another and the Creation Lotus platform arrived almost instantly, even faster than the Rulite Dharmic Seal. The white-robed man did not use any weapons. When he saw the incoming Creation Lotus platform, he merely extended his fair palm and grabbed it without moving at all. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes. He had just used the Creation Lotus platform to shatter the head of Chaos Essence Sect's mighty figure, Elder Lei Lai. But now, this white-robed man was using his body to grab the Creation Lotus platform. What sort of a body and power was that? The white-robed man had no openings from head to toe. Drip. A trickle of blood flowed down from the white-robed man's palm and fell to the ground. He was still injured after receiving the Creation Lotus platform barehanded. Of course, it was only a flesh wound. In the blink of an eye, the wound on the white-robed man's palm healed. A sacred item of the Buddhist sections. A look of love flashed through the eyes of the white-robed man as he looked at the jade-green lotus platform in his palm. Given your cultivation and combat strength, I can imagine that you're also a peerless monster incarnate of the Buddhist monasteries. I truly can't bear to kill you. What a pity. You truly shouldn't have come to this grand Primordium ancient temple and should not have been greedy. The white-robed man sighed gently and held the Creation Lotus platform in his palm. He looked at the Rulite Dharmic Seal that was charging over and channeled a mental cultivation technique as well, releasing an essence spirit secret skill. Su Zimo could not help but stare with widened eyes. A bedazzling golden light burst forth from the glabella of the white-robed man as well, an even larger, divine and resplendent swastika symbol descended. The Rulite Dharmic Seal. The white-robed man knew the Rulite Dharmic Seal as well. Furthermore, since he could condense 4 supreme Dharma characteristics, his essence spirit was definitely stronger than Su Zimo's. When released by him, the power of the Rulite Dharmic Seal was clearly even more terrifying. Boom! The 2 Rulite Dharmic Seals collided violently. The entire hall seemed to have stopped. Some cultivators not far away from the 2 of them shuddered and their gazes dimmed. Their life forces drained rapidly as they fell. Their essence spirits were already shattered in their consciousnesses. Even though it was just the collision of the two ruled Dharmic seals, the spirit consciousness fluctuation that spread out was something that many cultivators could not withstand. There was a momentary pause. The swastika symbol that Su Zimo condensed began to crack. As for the swastika symbol formed by the white-robed man, cracks appeared as well. However, it was clearly stronger than Su Zimo's. Before long, it suppressed and crushed Su Zimo's swastika symbol, sending it back towards him. A crushing defeat. Even though Su Zimo released 3 essence spirit secret skills in succession, they were all blocked by the white-robed man. Furthermore, the white-robed man's essence spirit secret skill formed a threatening counterattack. Su Zimo's essence spirit was already at its limits. At that moment, he felt a sharp pain and could no longer conjure any essence spirit secret skills. Even so, he did not give up. He condensed a wisp of spirit consciousness and constantly stimulated the Mingwang prayer beads on his left wrist, wanting to awaken the essence spirit Dharmic weapon. After all, he had worn this Dharmic weapon for many years and it was connected to his mind and bloodline. Sensing the danger Su Zimo was in, the Mingwang prayer beads emitted a blinding golden light that formed a golden barrier around Su Zimo. The light barrier was etched with mysterious words that possessed enigmatic might. Boom! The cracked ruled Dharmic seal collided against the golden barrier of the Mingwang prayer beads and shattered. Su Zimo's spirit consciousness was expended and the light barrier did not last long either. It dimmed rapidly and vanished without a trace. He had lost. Su Zimo did not have any Dharmic powers within his body and his essence spirit was dried up. He was thoroughly exhausted and could not even release the simplest Dharmic arts. The white-robed man merely had to use a single supreme Dharma characteristic to kill Su Zimo. Su Zimo arched his body slightly and panted heavily. Although he was indignant about the death of his green lotus true body here, it was nothing much. He still had his dragon true body and martial Dao true body. One day, he would definitely return and take revenge on Dao Lord Blood Fiend. Many thoughts flashed through Su Zimo's mind. In fact, he felt dizzy. However, the white-robed man did not attack the entire time. After a long time, Su Zimo finally realized that something was amiss and looked up instinctively. Unknowingly, the white-robed man had already arrived before him. Suddenly, the white-robed man reached out and grabbed his left arm. Su Zimo wanted to dodge and resist. However, he did not have any strength left and could only allow the white-robed man to grab his left arm. Shing! Exerting strength slightly, the sleeves on Su Zimo's left arm were instantly torn. The white-robed man's gaze landed on Su Zimo's left wrist and stared at the Mingwang prayer beads for a long time with a conflicted expression. However, Su Zimo was in a hazy state and did not notice it. This is the Mingwang prayer beads. A long time later, the white-robed man spoke slowly. Su Zimo did not have much strength left and merely sneered without replying. 40,000 years ago, the Mingwang prayer beads were worn by Monk Daming. Dao Lord Blood Fiend and Monk Daming were old enemies and fought fiercely. How could he not recognize this treasure of the Buddhist monasteries? How do you have this treasure? The white-robed man asked. You're this generation's titular disciple of Daming Monastery? Su Zimo lamented internally. Dao Lord Blood Fiend has been suppressed for tens of thousands of years and doesn't know about the changes in Tianhuang mainland. He doesn't know that even Daming Monastery is now gone. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.